Chapter 2388. You three, do you want to fight? Chu Yang broke the silence and said with a smile, if you want to fight, then please, self-defense, there shouldn't be a problem, right? When Chu Yang was thinking about this, the three absolutes saw his smile and suddenly felt that the suppression of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm had suddenly increased. They were shocked. This bastard is luring us to fight so that the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm won't accept us. The way to solve a conflict is not to fight to the death. We almost fell for this bastard's trick. The three of them were almost sweating as they communicated mentally. The reason why the suppression of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm had suddenly increased was because they had evil thoughts in their hearts. They were very clear about this. After 5 years in the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, the three of them had thoroughly explored this place. The good and evil in one's heart was the key. The Sage Monarch Mystery Realm's control of one's heart was extremely shocking, far beyond their imagination. Junior brother, you must be joking. I was just joking just now. The young man in green fiddled with the ring on his thumb and said with a smile, however, I'm really envious that junior brother has such a good partner like Miss Xiao Xiong. That's right. I'm only envious of Mandarin ducks and not immortals. Junior brother, you're really envious. Who says so? The three of them retracted their claws and fangs and became hypocritical. Chu Yang also responded in the same way. He even took the opportunity to communicate with his master, Dan Feng. He asked, wife, can you tell me more about these three things? After all, they have learned some of this genius shamelessness and hypocrisy. Shi Danfeng responded. According to her, the young man in green was called Wu Fang. He was very experienced in the path of painting. In the Sage Monarch College, he was known as the painting master. Of course, this was only limited to the Sage Monarch College. The square-faced one who looked very upright was called Zhao Lang, who was known as the CI master. The last one who looked very talented was Zhong Juyan, who was known as the poetry master. Junior brother Song, to be honest, I'm very uncomfortable in my heart. I'm very unwilling and even angry to the extreme. Zhong Juyan cupped his fists and said directly, I don't know how junior brother Song can get the favor of Xiaoxiang. I would like to ask, do you dare to enlighten me? He directly issued a challenge, and everything he said was from the bottom of his heart. Because this was the Saint King Mystery Realm, it would not be good to be hypocritical. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Domain, Zhong Juyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang were not willing to give up on the terrifying mind control technique. Therefore, they stayed in the Sage Monarch Mystery Domain for 5 years. The arrival of Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng posed a great threat to the three of them. If not for Shi Danfeng, the three of them would have already killed Chu Yang. Chu Yang was well aware of all this. He smiled and said, Senior Zhong, how do you want to compete? Junior brother Song, you should know that I'm good at poetry, right? Let's compete in poetry. Zhong Juyan also smiled and said, if junior brother Song can defeat me in the Tao of poetry, I won't have any complaints in the future. Shameless. Shi Danfeng was furious when she heard this. Her beautiful eyes also turned cold. Zhong Juyan was known as the poetry master. This was simply bullying Chu Yang. Although she did not say anything, her meaning was clear. She also did not expect that she would become the reason for Chu Yang to be attacked. Chu Yang still smiled and said, Senior Zhong, have you thought about it carefully? What? Zhong Juyan sneered, Junior brother Song, are you afraid? I'm a little afraid. Chu Yang looked at him with disdain. Senior Zhong, you're known as the poetry master. If you compete with me, I'm afraid that I'll use you to improve my reputation. Chapter 2389. You're right. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and pondered for a while before he said, Senior Zhong, you're right. I have to agree with you. How can I be an ordinary person? Ha ha ha. He laughed wildly. His complacent and arrogant appearance made Shi Danfeng's anger surge. She wished she could beat him up. Can't you tell the difference between good and bad? You don't know what you're talking about just because he flatters you a little. Zhong Juyan was angry and disdainful. He said, so, you agree, junior brother? Yes, of course I agree. Chu Yang laughed and said, it's time for me, the great genius, to show my talent. He paused and said to Zhong Juyan with a smile, Senior Zhong, you have to think carefully. I'm not an ordinary person. He said to Zhao Lang and Wu Fang, seniors, you have to be my witness. I've already reminded Senior Zhong. Don't you think so? He was too arrogant. Not only Zhong Zhouyan, but Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were also furious. I can testify for junior brother. Junior brother has indeed reminded brother Zhong. I can explain for junior brother. Junior brother, you can do whatever you want and teach brother Zhong a lesson. As soon as they finished speaking, Zhong Zhuyan said angrily, Junior brother, do you still have to hesitate? No, I don't. Chu Yang waved his hand and said, Senior Zhong, how are we going to compete? 1 poem, or 3 poems? Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Zhong Zhuyan waved his sleeve and said, Junior brother, let's just summon the Book of Songs and compete directly. What do you think? No. Before Chu Yang could say anything, Shi Danfeng screamed and tried to stop him. Then, she stared coldly at Zhong Zhuyan and said, Zhong Zhuyan, do you really want to bully me like this? She was truly enraged. In a competition of poetry, there was a competition like this. Everyone would summon the Book of Songs, Book of CI, or Book of Painting, and have a direct collision to determine the victor. This was like a battle of life and death on the martial path. The difference was that the one who died was not a person, but a poem, the Book of Songs, or even the literary Tao. This was because once he lost, Chu Yang might not be able to compose another poem in the future, let alone summon the Book of Songs. It might even affect his literary Tao and be completely rejected by it. The consequences were extremely severe. For example, the Book of Songs. It was like when Tao had given Chu Yang a new life. Once he lost, the Book of Songs would completely shatter. It was like a person dying, unable to be restored. There was no way to save it, and it was even more like a person dying. When Tao would erase it from his household register. Xiao Xiong is a talented girl. Zhong Zhuyan sneered, you've gone too far. Junior brother Song is very good at poetry. He even specially reminded me to be careful of not being able to defeat him. How can you say that he's bullying me? Who could he blame for his arrogance and ignorance? Could he blame me? What a joke. That's right. Zhao Lang immediately said, Xiao Xiong is a talented girl. Didn't you see what junior brother Song did just now? If you think you're no match for him, junior brother Song, you should just admit defeat. Wu Fang was even more direct. He said to Xiao Xiong, junior brother Song is arrogant and conceited. Xiao Xiong is a talented girl, yet you're blaming us? Chu Yang could not help but sneer in his heart. No man would be able to tolerate someone mocking his wife in front of him. He would definitely explode in anger, let alone someone as arrogant as him. Wu Fang was treating him like a fool. But who was the fool? Who was bullying who? In terms of poetry, as a plagiarist, Chu Yang had countless poems from his previous life. Any one of them would be enough to crush all of you. Of course he was angry. He rolled up his sleeves and pointed at Wu Fang's nose, scolding, You dog, is my wife someone you can lecture and mock? Just you wait. I'll let you see if this genius is arrogant and conceited. Chapter 2390. Arrogant and conceited, thinking that no one was as smart as him, that no one was better than him, and that no one could surpass him, Chu Yang. At least, this was Chu Yang in the eyes of Zhong Zhuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang. In their eyes, Chu Yang must be in such a state of ignorance at this moment. Was Chu Yang stupid? Of course not. Not only was Chu Yang not stupid, but he was also very smart. It was a pity that he was so complacent that he had forgotten that there was always someone better than him. There were definitely many people like Chu Yang. In other words, they could be seen everywhere in the world. Arrogance and conceit were so easy to make mistakes. Who could escape from such mistakes when they were young? Zhong Zhuyan and the other two could not. They had been like this when they were young, so they were very clear about this. They knew even more clearly that such a person would never come to his senses before he suffered a blow. Junior brother Song, it's not a good thing that you're too arrogant. Today, I'll wake you up. I'm afraid you'll have to thank me in the future. Zhong Zhuyan did not have any scruples in his contempt. He was not afraid that Chu Yang would come to his senses. Because he had also experienced such a stage, He understood too well and was too relaxed. His heart was full of ridicule. That's right. Junior brother Song really needs to wake up. If he continues to be so stubborn, he'll really be hopeless. Isn't that right? We've put in a lot of effort. If we don't use strong medicine, Junior brother Song will definitely not come to his senses. There are too many people like him. Zhao Lang's tone was also full of ridicule and mockery. Wu Fang could not help but sigh. The two of them had smiles on their faces. They were relaxed and happy. In the future, they really hoped to meet an idiot like Chu Yang. The three of them were unscrupulous in front of Chu Yang. He could not help but think of a poem, "It's hard to become a man without poverty. Heaven is true without a blow. Since ancient times, heroes have come out of purgatory. Riches and honor have come to the mortal world. Drunk and dreamy, who will succeed? Toma's spear will determine the universe. Leading the army for thousands of miles, the mountains and rivers will be passed down to future generations." Indeed, if he was at this stage of arrogance and complacency, Zhong Juoyan and the other two would not have any scruples. Because no matter what they said, he, being arrogant and complacent, would definitely not listen to a word they said. He would only be angry. While he was speechless, he couldn't help but reflect and sigh in his heart, "Why can't I even listen to the words and suggestions of others?" This was a problem. Not only was this problem when he was young. Chu Yang didn't have the time to explore the essence of this matter. He directly retorted angrily, "Seniors, do you know what it means to be slapped in the face? If you don't have the face to see anyone later, don't say that I didn't give you any face. Junior brother Song, if this goes on, you'll, it Fang, it was easy to deal. Fang was Fang, 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 Fang. Chu was, Fang was, they, Fang, he, Fang, he, one step Fang, one wrong would never." Zhao Lang and Wu Fang laughed even more happily and mockingly. Shi Danfeng was anxious, but before she could say anything, Zhong Juoyan smiled and said, "Xiaoxiang, we're doing this for the good of Junior brother Song. Otherwise, if he can't come to his senses, it'll be worse." What do you think? What he said was the truth. Therefore, Shi Danfeng didn't say anything. Perhaps he had paid a very heavy price today. But the price he would have to pay in the future would be even greater if he continued like this. In fact, he might even have to pay with his life. This woman is really rational. No wonder she could accept her fate so quickly after having sex with me. Chapter 2391. Cut the crap. Are you going to compete or not? Or should I say, you don't dare. Chu Yang was very impulsive, and made the reaction that Zhong Juoyan and the others had expected. The three of them couldn't help but sneer even more. "Talented Lady Xiaoxiang, do you see that? Junior brother Song really needs this beating." Zhong Juoyan and the others thought, "I'm doing you a favor by harming you. You've gained an advantage, yet you're still pretending to be obedient, especially to Shi Danfeng." Chu Yang couldn't help but feel angry. Putting aside that he was stupid, he actually dared to bully Shi Danfeng, making her feel uncomfortable, and even mocking her for being blind. This was absolutely intolerable. "Are you done with your nonsense?" When Chu Yang saw Shi Danfeng's extremely furious and incomparably conflicted expression, he was even more unable to hold back his anger. How could he let her be bullied to such an extent? Humph. Zhong Juoyan couldn't help but sneer in the face of Chu Yang's continuous roars. "I'll satisfy you." Pop. As soon as he finished speaking, the void above his head rippled like water with a soft sound, as if a small stone had been thrown into the calm surface of the water. Then, a book appeared, and floated above his head. Hong, long. In the Saint King Mystery Realm, literary arts had received a great boost. When this book appeared, there was immediately a surging flow of air that swept out in all directions. This book also seemed even more real. It was filled with an ancient aura, and the two words Book of Songs were written in a flamboyant style. It looked like a complete material object, but it was still a little illusory. That kind of illusory feeling was like the illusory world described in the book, and one couldn't help but think and investigate it. When Zhong Juoyan communicated with the Book of Songs that appeared wasn't completely like a real book. It was still a little bit off, but it was already very extraordinary and astonishing. No wonder it could be called the absolute poem. Is this all you've got? In the midst of Chu Yang's angry words, his book of songs also appeared. The difference was that it was silent. It appeared in an instant and was completed in an instant. Moreover, his book of songs was no different from a real book. This caused Zhong Juyen's group of 3 to be unable to help but be shocked, and they said to themselves, no wonder this ant dares to be so arrogant. He truly possesses shocking natural talent in the Tao of poetry. Shi Danfeng was also incomparably astonished. Chu Yang's book of songs had appeared too quickly. It was as if he had summoned it and dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Junior brother, you're really capable, but that doesn't mean you'll win. Zhong Juyen was still mocking him. Senior, let me remind you, Chu Yang retorted, don't speak too soon. Otherwise, you won't have the face to leave the stage, let alone live. Is that so? Rumble. Zhong Juyen's book of songs seemed to be an ancient book, but when it moved, it was as if the stars were moving. The void rumbled as if it was unable to bear its weight and was about to collapse. The airflow was turbulent, and the entire world changed color at this moment. The scene was grand and shocking to the extreme, so much so that Shi Danfeng was extremely anxious even before the two sides came into contact. She almost couldn't help but take action to stop all of this. Chu Yang's book of songs was just like a piece of paper, floating there. When Zhong Juyen's book of songs rushed over, it suddenly shook violently. Immediately, brush, ink, paper, and inkstone appeared on it. The 4 treasures of the study were here. The eastern city gradually feels that the scenery is good, wrinkling the ripples to welcome the guest. Outside the smoke of the green poplar, the dawn is cold, the red apricot branches are lively with spring. Growing in life, hating the lack of pleasure, willing to love the daughter with a light smile. Holding wine to persuade the setting sun for the ruler, and leaving the evening glow among the flowers. A poem about spring was recited from Zhong Juyen's book of songs. Moreover, after this poem, one after another appeared as if there was no end to it. Chapter 2392. Spring and autumn, winter and summer, mountains and rivers, fields, rain and snow, plum blossoms, lotus flowers, chrysanthemums, the moon, the lantern festival, the mid-autumn festival, the spring festival, and so on. Poems related to these were written one after another. Along with these, in Zhong Juyen's book of songs, scenes of the 4 seasons, mountains and rivers, wind, flowers, snow, and the moon, as well as festive scenes appeared one by one. It was as if a picture scroll of the world was opened, and all things seemed to appear in it. The ink, paper, and inkstone that appeared in Chu Yang's book of songs were like 4 defenseless people facing an army armed to the teeth in front of them. Zhong Juyen's poems were more than Chu Yang's, much, much more. The poems here did not refer to the poems that were included in the book of songs, but the poems that Zhong Juyen had written before. He was much more than Chu Yang. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, landscape, and so on were all involved. In terms of quantity, he completely crushed Chu Yang. After Chu Yang had activated the book of songs, he had only written a few poems. He did not want to expose a poem like Spring Dawn, because once it was released, his identity would be exposed directly. In a one-sided situation, Chu Yang would definitely lose. Haha. Zhong Juyen laughed directly. Junior Song, although you are talented, I can make up for it with hard work, don't you think so? Once the book of songs is broken, I'm afraid Junior Song can't make up for it with hard work. It's really a pity for such a talent. My heart hurts so much. Zhao Lang also laughed continuously. Wu Fang did not stop. Instead, he became sharper and more sarcastic. He directly ridiculed, Junior Song, are you going to slap our faces like this? Haha. Chu Yang did not say anything. He quickly recited 2 poems. Jasper is made into the height of a tree, thousands of green silk ribbons hang down. I wonder who cut the thin leaves, the spring breeze in February is like scissors. Ying Lian clogs the moss, the small button door does not open for a long time. The garden full of spring cannot be shut, a branch of red apricot leaves the wall. These 2 poems were extremely famous in his previous life. They were familiar and could be found in the textbooks of students. Bang bang bang. Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, the four treasures of the study instantly exploded, unable to form an effective barrier. Zhong Juyan's book of songs crashed over like a star. Chu Yang's book of songs exploded like an egg and immediately turned into dust. It turned into a chaotic flow that scattered in all directions and stirred up an enormous vortex. Haha, junior brother song, you're too late. Although the two poems you've created are extraordinary, are they useful? It was not without reason that Zhong Juyan was known as the poetry master. At first glance, the two poems that Chu Yang came up with were not extraordinary, but he immediately noticed how amazing these two poems were. Because of that, Zhong Juyan was slightly shocked. However, he was even more pleased and his mood became even better. Destroying something that was worth thousands of gold, or even a city, wouldn't that be a very satisfying thing? Haha. Zhao Lang and Wu Fang laughed so hard that tears were about to flow out. That Song Deming was really stupid. His talent was obviously much better than Zhong Juyan's. If he was not so arrogant and accumulated more experience, Zhong Juyan would not be worth mentioning. He could crush him with a raise of his hand. Unfortunately, he was too ignorant. He destroyed his own future and brought about his own destruction. Zhong Juyan, Zhao Lang, Wu Fang. At the moment when Chu Yang's book of songs exploded, Shi Danfeng's heart seemed to explode. She lamented Chu Yang and heard the ridicule of the three people. Anger burned in her heart. Her killing intent surged out like a dam and drowned the three people in an instant. Do you want to die? She called out their names one by one. Her voice was like the snowstorm in winter. Her expression was as sharp as a knife. She was like a female Rakshasa who was about to explode and kill people, causing rivers of blood to flow. The laughter of Zhong Juyan and the other two stopped abruptly like ducks being strangled by their necks. Did I lose? You're celebrating too early. Chapter 2393. Have I lost? It's too early for you to be happy. This was naturally Chu Yang's voice. He continued in an extremely languid tone, Seniors, don't be too proud just yet. Allow me to take my time. Zhong Juyan and the other two looked at Chu Yang with a strange look in their eyes. The result couldn't be more obvious. But this ant still doesn't admit defeat. They really couldn't understand. Shi Danfeng was also very puzzled. The book of songs was like a mortal. Once it exploded, it would be like a mortal dying. How could it be restored? This was completely impossible. While she was still puzzled, she was already in Chu Yang's arms. She heard his gentle words, I'm sorry for making you be bullied and worried. This kind of thing won't happen again in the future. However. Then, Chu Yang suddenly said, I say, wife, aren't you too cruel? Even if I'm useless, can you not hand me over to the enemy? Can you use your method to make your husband succeed? Shi Danfeng was a little confused. She didn't see how Chu Yang had won, or how he had turned defeat into victory. However, this scoundrel acted as if he had already won. Although this was very sweet and moved her, it also made her even more embarrassed and angry. Because this scoundrel didn't have anything good to say. Wife, you have to know that behind a successful man, there will always be a few women. This sentence caused Shi Danfeng's beautiful eyes to immediately become fierce. I'm only speaking the truth. Chu Yang shrugged, looking very helpless and unable to do anything to her. She was so angry that she sent Chu Yang flying with a kick. Song Deming, your book of songs has already been destroyed, yet you still refuse to admit defeat. Are you trying to act shamelessly? Zhong Juyan was burning with anger. Chu Yang actually flirted with the talented girl Xiaoxiang in front of the three of them, completely ignoring the three of them. Song Deming, you're really a shameless villain. Haha. Wu Fang was originally burning with rage, but he burst out laughing. Song Deming, you're really stupid. This is the Saint Monarch Mystery Realm, and you refuse to admit defeat. There's no integrity to speak of. I guarantee you'll be extremely satisfied later. Hearing this, Zhong Juyan's eyes lit up. That's right, Song Deming, you're finished. The Saint Monarch Mystery Realm can't tolerate someone like you. Haha. Seniors, don't be so arrogant. I've said that I'll come slowly. Chu Yang was not in a hurry. He stood up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. He smiled and said, "Haste makes waste. 3 seniors, I will definitely satisfy you." Stubborn as a dead duck, truly ignorant. The 3 of them sneered endlessly. Hee. Chu Yang finally chuckled and used his literary cultivation. Then, he spread out his hands and said, "3 seniors, take a look at this." His magic power surged, and ripples spread out in the void with a pop sound. An antique ancient book jumped into Chu Yang's palm like a fairy. It exuded a holy and gentle light, and even Chu Yang himself appeared very sacred. The Book of Songs. After the Book of Songs was destroyed, it could actually be restored. Zhong Juoyan and the other 2 stared at Chu Yang's palm without blinking. Unconsciously, large beads of sweat rolled down from their foreheads. This scoundrel. Shi Danfeng was so shocked that she bit her tongue to the extreme. The pain woke her up, and then she felt a hand pulling her into someone's arms. His head intimately pressed against her, and his chin rested on her shoulder. Jasper makeup as tall as a tree. Chapter 2394. First grade poem, a proper first grade poem. In the blink of an eye, 2 extremely shocking things happened one after another. Not only was the Book of Songs restored in an instant, but there was also someone who could compose 2 first-grade poems in an instant. It was unbelievable. How did he do it? Was he still human? Seniors, why aren't you laughing? Is there something wrong with you? Chu Yang's indifferent voice drilled into the ears of Zhong Juoyan and the other 2. The 3 of them were furious but also abnormally ashamed. Blood rushed to their faces and directly turned them red. What was even more outrageous was that Song Deming had once again completely ignored them. He was asking for a reward and encouragement from the talented girl. "Dear, I did a good job, right? Don't you want to give me a little reward?" Song Deming, did you win? Facing Zhong Juoyan's anger, Chu Yang smiled and stretched out his hand. "Senior, please continue to struggle. Don't disturb me and my wife whispering sweet nothings to each other. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning." Zhong Juoyan was so angry that he was trembling. He gritted his teeth and suddenly roared again, "Go!" His Book of Songs moved once more, and it was immediately like a magnificent army charging forward. It rumbled as it swept away everything before it, and it once again charged towards Chu Yang's Book of Songs with the momentum of sweeping away everything before it. Chu Yang did not even look at it. When he was kicked away by Shi Danfeng in anger and shame, his Book of Songs suddenly trembled. Suddenly, a poem rushed out and transformed into a large hand. It fiercely grabbed Zhong Juoyan's Book of Songs and then shook it. In an instant, the Book of Songs silently disintegrated. Pieces of pages fluttered in the air like snowflakes. Finally, everything gathered together and transformed into a trembling human figure. It knelt in front of Chu Yang's Book of Songs. Chu Yang's Book of Songs was like an immortal. It could touch stone and turn it into gold. It was immortal and immortal. Its magic power was boundless. Zhong Juoyan's Book of Songs was like an emperor that ruled over millions of territories. When he was angry, rivers of blood would flow and millions of corpses would fall. The comparison between the 2 was more or less like this. Chu Yang's Book of Songs was superior. No matter how powerful Zhong Juoyan's Book of Songs was, it was of no use. It could not cross the gap between immortals and mortals. And the power of the secular world was not worth mentioning in the eyes of immortals. Zhong Juoyan was completely dumbfounded. It was as if his soul had been taken away. It was as if he had become a zombie. Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were so shocked that they fell to the ground. They were dumbstruck as they watched all this. Shi Danfeng's beautiful face also turned pale. She had never seen such an outrageous thing in her life. But, how could she know that Chu Yang already had the cultivation of the literary path? Even if the Book of Songs was destroyed, the magical power transformed from literary energy could be condensed again at any time. Seniors, did I lose? At this time, Chu Yang looked at Zhong Juoyan and the other 2 and laughed coldly. The 3 of them did not answer. He continued to mock, 3 seniors, does this count as me slapping your faces? Zhao Lang and Wu Fang were in a much better state than Zhong Juoyan. The 2 of them suddenly heard such bitter mockery. Their faces turned red and boiling hot. They glared at him angrily. Ah! Suddenly, Zhong Juoyan screamed. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body trembled. Then, he felt as if someone had extracted his bone marrow. He collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His body kept spasming. Zhong Juoyan's Wendao luck and everything else had been extracted. In the future, he would become a dead person on the Wendao household register. The household register would also be completely removed. From then on, he would have no fate with the Wendao. Chapter 2395. Senior, I've reminded you that I'm very powerful, haven't I? Chu Yang smiled and asked with a grin, Senior, am I powerful? Zhong Juoyan did not have the support of his martial arts cultivation. After his Wendao was deprived and he suffered a backlash, he was seriously injured. After being humiliated like this, he tilted his head and actually fainted. TSK, who are you showing off in front of? Who are you bullying? Chu Yang was full of disdain. He kicked Zhong Juoyan and looked at Zhao Lang and Wu Fang with a smile, saying, Seniors, how do you feel now? Can you express your feelings of being slapped in the face? Not to mention Zhao Lang and Wu Fang, even Shi Danfeng could not bear to watch and listen. In terms of bullying, Zhong Juoyan and the other two added up were not as good as Chu Yang's finger. This rascal was bullying people and even wanted to bully people to death. She could only describe it in this way, too cruel. Therefore, she already did not know how Zhao Lang and Wu Fang felt at the moment. Therefore, she seemed to understand why Chu Yang, the rascal, asked them how they felt. Junior, do you dare to compete with me in the classic of CI with you? After a burst of shame and anger, Zhao Lang actually said something that surprised Chu Yang and made him feel a little incredulous. He looked at Zhao Lang's gloomy expression and could not help but ask directly, Senior, are you stupid? Zhao Lang felt as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He suddenly had the heart to tear Chu Yang apart, but he just said, I am stupid, but do you dare to accept the challenge? Chu Yang glanced at Zhao Lang from head to toe with a strange look in his eyes. He really couldn't understand what was going on. He muttered in his heart, what is this thing relying on? Junior, where is your arrogance just now? Don't you dare now? Zhao Lang tried his best to provoke him. Haha. Chu Yang finally chuckled. He looked at Zhao Lang with a smile and said, I'll satisfy you and let you end up like Senior Zhong, as long as you have the ability. Zhao Lang gritted his teeth. Then, Senior, please, the two of them began to compete. The process of the competition was almost the same as before. The only difference was that the Book of Songs had become the Book of CI. The moment their CI Sutra collided, Zhao Lang's CI Sutra burst forth with 3 first-rank CI Sutra, causing his CI Sutra to flourish to the extreme in an instant. It directly crushed and broke Chu Yang's CI Sutra. At that moment, Chu Yang somewhat understood. Zhao Lang was relying on the 3 first-grade poems. Zhao Lang's talent in literary arts was even more shocking than Zhong Juoyan's. From what Chu Yang knew, it was very difficult for Central State to produce a first-grade poem or a first-grade poem. This was probably an illusion, because many people used it as a trump card, such as Zhao Lang. Not good. When Chu Yang's CI Sutra recovered again, Zhao Lang attacked fiercely, but he could no longer do anything to Chu Yang's CI Sutra. The same situation happened to Zhong Juoyan. He was immediately frightened, but it was too late. Defeat, a crushing defeat without any suspense. His literary arts luck and many other aspects of literary arts were all directly extracted and given to Chu Yang like Zhong Juoyan. He convulsed on the ground, and his martial arts cultivation was completely suppressed. He was like a chicken or duck, waiting to be eaten. This is the so-called 3 unique of the Holy King Academy. That's all there is to it. Chu Yang was extremely disdainful. He said to Wu Fang directly, if you are the so-called 3 unique, then I am the unique of the unique. What do you think? What the hell are you talking about? You can't slap my face like this. Wu Fang's face was red. He gritted his teeth and said, I want to challenge you to a painting Dao. Since you are so arrogant, do you dare to compete with me in painting Dao? I've slapped your faces. Is it not enough? Do you want to make up for it? Chu Yang sneered. At this moment, he really didn't understand. Were Zhao Lang and Wu Fang both stupid? They knew that he was amazing in literary arts, but they still came to humiliate themselves. Chapter 2396. As for Zhao Lang and Wu Fang's actions, they knew they were no match for him, yet they still came forward to seek death. After a moment of confusion, Chu Yang somewhat understood. Greed arose in Zhao Lang's heart. In such a competition of literary Dao, once he lost, not only would he lose the Book of Songs, but also Zhong Juyan's Book of Ci, Book of Paintings and so on would all be taken away. Everything in literary Dao would cease to exist. Moreover, all his literary Dao luck would be added to Chu Yang. In this way, Chu Yang's talent would increase, and it would be easier for him to compose poems. Zhao Lang was shocked by Chu Yang's talent in poetry. He wanted to plunder Chu Yang's talent and make it his own. Of course, this was not enough. Although Zhao Lang, Zhong Juyan, and Wu Fang had become the three masters, Zhao Lang probably looked down on Zhong Juyan. To be precise, Zhao Lang probably looked down on Zhong Juyan. It had been a long time since scholars looked down on each other. In fact, poetry was not divided into families. Zhong Juyan actually held the title of Master of Poetry. Zhao Lang's talent was even better, but he could only fall behind Zhong Juyan. How could he be convinced? Moreover, Zhao Lang's talent was indeed amazing. He had actually come up with 3 first-grade poems. Naturally, he would be arrogant and look down on Zhong Juyan. Therefore, even if Zhong Juyan was not Chu Yang's match, it did not mean that he was not either. In Chu Yang's view, Zhao Lang actually had another mentality, gambling mentality. Zhao Lang actually did not care much about literary Dao. He could accept losing it, so he boldly took a big gamble. This was especially true when he was confident in himself. However, he did not expect that Chu Yang already had the cultivation of literary Dao. He could use the power of literary Dao to display the same power as martial Dao. As for Wu Fang, it was even simpler. Once Zhong Juyan and Zhao Lang fell, Wu Fang was alone. How could he face Chu Yang and Shi Danfeng? How could he not pay the price for mocking and ridiculing Chu Yang? The smallest price he had to pay was the same as Zhong Juyan and Zhao Lang. The biggest price he had to pay was that he would be directly killed by Chu Yang. Therefore, his choice was very simple. There was another reason for Wu Fang's decision. This was the Sage Monarch secret territory. If Chu Yang wanted to obtain the inheritance in the Sage Monarch secret territory, he could not simply kill people. After Chu Yang figured this out, everything became simple. He agreed to Wu Fang's challenge. When the two of them used the painting classic, Wu Fang was defeated and ended up like Zhong Juyan and Zhao Lang. After Wu Fang also fell, everything was completely over. However, Chu Yang still couldn't help but sigh. There isn't a single idiot here. You're the only smart person in this world. Everyone else is an idiot. You're unprecedented. Are you satisfied now? When Shi Danfeng heard Chu Yang's sigh, she couldn't help but jab at him. In any case, she had been provoked by this rascal today. At the very least, no matter how proud she was, she had no choice but to admit that she was absolutely inferior to this scoundrel in terms of Wendao cultivation. Wife, I'm awesome. When Chu Yang heard Shi Danfeng's displeasure, he couldn't help but laugh. Then, he said, quickly praise me, shameless. Shi Danfeng directly rolled her eyes. She was extremely charming, and Chu Yang followed her rolling eyes and fell to the ground. He said absent-mindedly, wife, when you rolled your eyes, you actually stole my soul and soul. You're really beautiful. She couldn't help but blush. She felt that even if her skin was as thick as a city wall, it would still be penetrated by this rascal. You have to compensate me. Shi Danfeng immediately rolled her eyes again. Wife, you're wrong. If you want your husband to be successful, rolling your eyes is far from enough. You also need to encourage, praise, worship, and so on. Quickly worship your husband and let me satisfy you. Rolling her eyes, still rolling her eyes. In a short period of time, Shi Danfeng didn't know how many times she had rolled her eyes. She also realized that this had become a habitual action. It was absolutely impossible for her to encourage and praise Chu Yang. Chapter 2397. Shi Danfeng wanted to kick him for being so blatant and shameless. However, that rascal's figure moved and disappeared into that dazzling light. She could only follow her husband's lead and follow him. After passing through this light, it was the star-like world. The secret of the Sage King mystery realm was there. There would definitely be a test to enter. This test surprised Chu Yang. A barrier like a wall. In the endless light, there was a barrier blocking the way. This barrier was as smooth as a mirror, leaving no traces. Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang stayed here for 5 years, but they didn't leave any traces. The rolling Yangtze River flows east, washing away heroes. Right and wrong, success and failure vanish in a flash. The green hills are still there, and the sunset is still red. Chu Yang started to try and write a poem on it. White-haired fishermen and woodcutters on the river, accustomed to the autumn moon and spring breeze. A pot of turbid wine is a happy reunion. So many things in the past and present are just jokes. When the poem was completed, the mirror-like barrier rippled like a calm water surface, shining with an even more dazzling light. Then, it completely calmed down. Is the quantity not enough, or the quality not enough? Chu Yang thought and tried again. Leaving the door open, changing the fire 3 times, stepping into the world of mortals. Still a smile like the warmth of spring. Without waves in the true ancient well, there is a knot in the autumn clouds. Melancholy, the lonely sail sailed through the night, sending off the faint moon and faint clouds. There is no need to frown in front of me. Life is like a journey in reverse, I am also a traveler. It was almost the same result as the previous poem. It seems that a small path like poetry is not enough to pass such a test. He used many poems, but none of them worked. So, he started to write many Confucian thoughts on it. In the end, 2 extremely dazzling words appeared on it: Sage King. Sage King, is it the inner sage outer sage king or the outer sage inner sage king? Who will explain it to you? Chu Yang stroked his chin as he muttered to himself. Shi Danfeng, who was standing at the side, seemed to have been scared silly, or perhaps she had turned into a love-struck fool. Before this, Chu Yang had defeated Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang, so she knew that Chu Yang's foundation in the Tao of literature was absolutely not bad. However, when she truly witnessed it, she still couldn't help but be greatly shocked. In such a short period of time, Chu Yang actually came up with close to 20 to 30 poems. Every one of them was extremely extraordinary, completely subverting Shi Danfeng's imagination. It could be said that no matter how talented the central state was, it was impossible for them to compose so many poems in such a short period of time. Furthermore, every single one of them caused her eyes to light up. Is he even human? Shi Danfeng couldn't help but have such a thought. She suddenly had such a feeling: I'm a female toad, and Chu Yang is a male swan. Shangguan Lan. When she thought of such a person again, she really couldn't help but feel a little nervous and felt a great pressure. Then, she realized that her mentality was annoyed, and she said to herself, what's so great about him? He just has the capital to be a scoundrel and shameless. It seems that there is only one sentence. When she heard Chu Yang talking to himself, Shi Danfeng didn't know why, but she secretly looked over. At this moment, Chu Yang had already written on it, establishing a heart for heaven and earth, establishing a life for the people, inheriting the lost knowledge for the past saints, establishing peace for all ages. When this sentence was imprinted in Shi Danfeng's beautiful eyes, there was a roar in her mind. She didn't know how to describe her feelings. In an instant, her gaze turned into what Chu Yang had expected: worship. She felt that such a sentence had completely written and encapsulated the highest pursuit and ultimate meaning of all literati. It had also completely clarified and confirmed the vague thoughts in her heart. Chapter 2398. Rumble. Heaven and earth establish the heart, establish life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, establish peace for all ages. The moment Chu Yang wrote such a sentence, the entire Saint King Academy shook violently. The sky shook and the earth changed. The students in the academy were extremely shocked. Immediately, they found that 3 people had been thrown out of the Saint King mystery realm. They recognized them as Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang, the three ultimate of the Saint King Academy. Immediately, there was an uproar. They immediately understood that such a huge commotion must be because something had happened in the Saint King mystery realm. Zhuo Caichang, Yu Fuji, Liu Wu, Wang Cheng, and Han Zheng, the 5 higher-ups of the Saint King Academy, were even more sensitive. At this time, they could even see the scene in the depths of the Saint King mystery realm. They saw Chu Yang, Shi Danfeng, and the sentence Chu Yang had written. Heaven and earth establish the heart, establish life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the past sages, establish peace for all ages. Every word in this sentence was extremely dazzling and almost impossible to look at. It was as if every word was a small sun, dazzling and incomparably holy. As soon as the words fell into the eyes of the 5 people, their minds rumbled like thunder. They trembled continuously, revealing an extremely shocked and excited expression. When the line of words disappeared and turned into a bright vortex that sucked Chu Yang in, the 5 people were shocked again. He did it. That little bastard had succeeded. In a short period of time, he had obtained the recognition of the relics left behind by the Wen Dao era. The 5 people were far more shocked than happy. In fact, they didn't even feel joy, only shock. How many years had the Saint King Academy been established? Very few people could enter the Saint King mystery realm. Those who could climb the mountain of books and pass the sea of knowledge were even rarer. However, there had never been a single person who had obtained the recognition of the Saint King mystery realm. Now, such a person had finally appeared. Moreover, he had used an extremely short period of time to do all this. He had done something that countless people couldn't do even after a long period of time. This little bastard is indeed a monster. The 5 of us didn't spare any effort to teach him a lesson in vain. Among the 5 of them, 5th Liu had always been the most frivolous. However, at this moment, he could not say anything witty. He was deeply shocked. Establishing the heart of life for the heavens and earth, pointing out a great Tao for the common people to follow, inheriting the knowledge that the saints of the past did not pass on, and establishing a foundation for eternal peace for future generations. At this moment, Zhuo Caichang was completely absent-minded. The words that Chu Yang had written kept appearing in his mind. In the end, he couldn't help but say, "This bastard has already far surpassed us." Inner sage Yu Fuji, who had expected better from Song Tangming, couldn't help but nod in agreement. Song Tangming, this little bastard, although he was sloppy and didn't have the slightest bit of integrity, even an old-fashioned person like him couldn't help but admire him. Only now did I realize how foolish I was. Only now did I understand why that little bastard didn't care whether he was an inner saint or an outer saint or an inner saint. Han Zheng also sighed and said, just as he said, "No matter if it's a white cat or a black cat, it's a good cat as long as it can catch mice. Therefore, whether it's inner saint or inner saint, it's just a means to him. It's not even a means at all. We've always been conflicted about this, but we've ignored the suffering of the common people in the world. How laughable is this?" Wang Cheng was very self-deprecating. He felt like he had lived half his life as a dog. Methods were important, but doing things was even more important. If one didn't put it into practice, how would they know if what they insisted on was correct? The answer was in the process of putting it into practice. Practice was the standard to test all truth. The 5 of them all thought of the words that Chu Yang had said when he debated with them in order to escape their torment. Such a dry sentence was just a fart to them at first. However, at this moment, they realized that such a sentence was filled with great wisdom. Chapter 2399. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, after Chu Yang wrote down the 4 lines of Henk and entered the core area, the entire Sage Monarch Mystery Realm was enveloped and drowned in endless light, turning into a world of light. It was like heaven, a kingdom of heaven, only light, no darkness, only joy, and no sadness. Although Shi Danfeng did not enter the core area, there was already a great power descending from the light, invading her mind, wanting to change and control her mind. The power of the Wen Dao in the mind, the method to control the mind. After being shocked, she resisted with all her strength and tried to comprehend. If she succeeded, she would be able to comprehend the mystery, but if she failed, her thoughts and consciousness would be completely changed. Unlike Shi Dan Feng, Chu Yang passed through the barrier. As soon as he entered the star-like world, the magnificent historical scenes unfolded quickly in front of him and were imprinted into his mind one by one. This should be the history of the Wen Dao era, Xia, Shang, and Western Ju. Eastern Ju was divided into two parts, the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. Qin and Han were unified, and Wei, Shu, and Jin were divided into three parts. Northern and Southern dynasties existed side by side, and Sui and Tang were passed down for 5 generations. After the Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, the dynasty ended. Chu Yang felt that the first half of the history was not very different from the history of his previous life. The only difference was that the names of the dynasties and the main characters of the dynasties were completely different. There was also a history similar to that of Confucius traveling around the countries and writing the Spring and Autumn Annals. There was also a history of Mencius inheriting the teachings of Confucius. However, as Chu Yang knew before, in the Wen Dao era, the founder of Confucianism was not Confucius, but Qin Zi. Mencius was Chu Zi. The path of Confucius and Mencius became the path of Qin Chu. Dong Zhongshu proposed the unification of the Spring and Autumn Annals and the abolition of the 100 schools of thought, and only Confucianism was respected. With Confucianism as the philosophical foundation of the country, other ideological systems were banned. Thus, Confucianism became the orthodox ideology, and the study of the 4 books and 5 classics became prominent. These historical events were similar, but in the Wen Dao era, that person was not Dong Zhongshu, but Liu Shuang. In the Wen Dao era, Qin Zi was the first Confucian master, Chu Zi was the second, and Liu Shuang was the third. Later on, the history of the Wen Dao era was gradually different from the history of Chu Yang's previous life, and the history of the Wen Dao era was much longer. With the appearance of the 4th Confucian master, all of the literary works, poems, paintings, articles, and scriptures were turned into spells. However, a certain amount of time was required before the spells could be cast. But because of this, the poetry, calligraphy, and painting of the Wen Dao era flourished. The appearance of the 6th Confucian master made the use of literary Dao even more powerful and removed many of its drawbacks. One could even use the power of literary Dao to refine one's body, making one immortal and indestructible. One would not enter the cycle of reincarnation and become a Confucian immortal. The appearance of the 9th Confucian master allowed the Confucian way to reach a new peak, but at the same time, he personally destroyed the entire Confucian era. The mountain ridges are like a gathering point, the waves are like angry waves, the surface of the mountains and rivers is the Tongguan Road. Gazing at the western capital, he hesitated. Grieving over the Qin and Han dynasties, thousands of palaces turned to dust. Rise, the common people suffer. Fall, the common people suffer. Just like this poem said, the rise and fall of the 9th Confucian dynasty caused the common people to be in an abyss of suffering. He encouraged them to change and build a great harmony world. Thus, he created the Great Harmony Sutra to control the spirit energy of everyone in the world to achieve his goal. Chapter 2400. Hiss. In the end, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said in disbelief, controlling the spirit power of all the people in the world, forcibly raising their awareness, forcing the hearts of all the people, and establishing a world of great harmony. This can actually be done successfully. Unbelievable, truly unbelievable. The more he thought about it, the more incredulous he felt. It felt like a dream. What was the most difficult thing to control in the world? There might be many answers, but he firmly believed that the human heart was definitely one of the answers. How could the human heart be controlled? The human heart was ever-changing, how could it be controlled? He felt that the 9th Confucian master had definitely been kicked in the head by a donkey. However, this fellow who had been kicked in the head by a donkey had actually created the Thatong Sutra that controlled everyone's hearts, establishing the world of great unity, and even maintaining it for a year. This is definitely a bluff, an unprecedented bluff. The failure of the 9th Confucian master was inevitable, but to be able to defy the heavens for so long, Chu Yang could only offer his knees and express his endless worship. Of course, his desire to obtain the Great Harmony Sutra was even more intense. Once he obtained the Great Harmony scripture, then he would become a monster, a demon, and a god, and would be able to intimidate others. Why did I lose? When Chu Yang's eyes were shining, a hoarse voice suddenly emerged from the bottom of his heart. The ninth Confucian master? The ninth Confucian master didn't die, or is this just his remnant consciousness? He was shocked. Just as his mind was filled with doubt, he suddenly felt a great force breaking through the air. It was overbearing and pervasive, invading his mind in an instant. It wanted to control his thoughts, control all of his thoughts and consciousness. Great Harmony Sutra. How could it be played like this? Chu Yang's soul almost left his body. The Great Harmony Sutra's control was equivalent to the soul power, and it made his scalp tingle. If the soul of everyone in the world could be controlled, how could he resist? However, he didn't have any leeway to choose. Investigate things to achieve knowledge. Zhu Shi's Confucianism, because it developed in the direction of spells in the era of Wen Dao, did not form. It was directly used by Chu Yang, but it was instantly shattered and not worth mentioning. The focus of Confucianism is on reason, it can't form any resistance against the soul power. When he understood, he directly used Wang Mingwen's philosophy of mind. The heart is reason. The path of the sage is self-sufficient, seeking reason from it is wrong. The heart is reason, there is nothing outside the heart. This philosophy of mind was like a dam, temporarily blocking that mighty force. At the same time, another voice from the bottom of Chu Yang's heart emerged again. There is nothing in this world that is outside of the heart. What does the flowers in the deep mountains bloom and fall by themselves have to do with the heart? Confucianism was one extreme, was the philosophy of the mind not? It is no longer outside of your heart, but when you see the flower the flowers blooms is tt outside, its heart b, its is tt bis inside ttt. Because his sophistry actually lasted for a long time, but in the end, in the silence, the defense formed by this principle exploded with a loud bang. Chu Yang was shocked, but also very happy. The Great Harmony Sutras might not be unstoppable. After all, the era of Wen Dao had been destroyed, and the ninth Confucian master was dead. At most, only a remnant of his consciousness was left. To achieve conscience. Chapter 24:01. There is no good or evil in the body. There is good and evil in the body. Knowing good and evil is conscience. Eliminating evil for good is investigation. Wang Mingwen's theory on the study of the mind had been exhausted. Just now, the great force had been slowed down. The voice of inquiry once again emerged from Chu Yang's heart. What is the heart? What is the meaning? Immediately, Chu Yang broke out in a cold sweat. The theory of the study of the mind was suspicious of playing with concepts. Since there was no good or evil in the heart, why was there good or evil in the mind? The mind was born from the heart. If there was no good or evil in the mind, then there should be no good or evil in the mind. In that case, there was no place for conscience. The 4 sentences he came up with were a chaotic language full of contradictions. With a boom, while Chu Yang was hesitating, his soul was greatly shaken. The great force directly broke through the obstacles of the study of the mind and directly blasted into the depths of his soul. You lost because you went against the law of social development. You lost because you also violated the laws of social development. In this critical moment, Chu Yang could only throw these out. At this time, his forehead was already drenched in cold sweat. In such a short period of time, he felt that he was going to become a philosopher, a great person in the history of mankind. He was a sloppy guy who only wanted to hug his wife to sleep. One day, he actually had to think about the changes of society and the ultimate direction of mankind. How ironic. If this were to be known by his friends in his previous life, he would probably be laughed at to death. What he learned in school had become his life-saving straw. What are the laws of social development? What are the laws of social development? The voice in his heart seemed to have taken a long time to understand the meaning of the word society. It took a long time before it asked the question. The laws of society are realized through the conscious actions of people with a certain purpose and intention. Chu Yang did not know what he was saying. Anyway, He was a little confused about this point. He simply threw out the concept of technology as productivity. Then, without waiting for the voice to ask, he immediately spoke again. The development of things is a process. Everything can only realize its own development after going through a certain process. Chu Yang didn't care about the dual nature of things, contradictory nature, quantitative change and qualitative change. He threw them all out. It seemed that he had finally blasted that questioning voice into a daze. And that invading mighty force had also completely stopped. The literary Tao was originally just poetry, calligraphy, paintings, articles, classics, and the like. When it was transformed into spells, it would become technology and productivity. But is that so? After a long time, this voice came out again. He was almost scared to death. The 9th Confucian master is not dead, and even if he is definitely not completely dead. This 9th generation Confucian master is truly astonishing, and it's not like he can't say that. When the way of Confucianism turned into spells, it definitely changed the world at that time. If this continues, I'm afraid that my identity as a transmigrator will be completely exposed to him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Chu Yang finally got straight to the point and said, "You can put it that way, but the reason why you failed is because I think you can control people's minds, but not matter. Matter determines consciousness, and consciousness is just a reaction of matter. Matter is the primary attribute, and consciousness is the secondary attribute, so of course you will fail." Chu Yang didn't know whether this statement was correct or not, because the world he was in did not follow the rules of his previous life at all. It was a completely different world. The voice fell silent again. After a long time, it said, "You're saying that I have controlled the world of the mind, but not the world of matter. The world of the mind is attached to the world of matter, and the world of matter is the foundation. That's why I failed, right?" Chu Yang's head hurt. "Don't ask me such a profound question. I'll kneel down in front of you, okay?" He sighed again in his heart. The 9th Confucian master is definitely a bluff. If it was in my previous life, those so-called great people would have been killed by him in a second. I don't know. I still need to think deeply about all this before I can decide whether it's right or wrong. Chapter 2402. In the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, time passed like water. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In the Sage Monarch College, Zhong Zhouyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang had long regained consciousness. However, their Wen Dao had been taken away, and their minds were severely injured. At first, when the 3 of them were asked what had happened in the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, the 3 of them kept silent. After all, it was a humiliating matter, so how could they say it out loud? However, the 3 of them knew that paper couldn't wrap fire. In addition to their resentment towards Chu Yang, after a discussion, they began to make trouble and frame Chu Yang. Their lines were roughly the same. Song Tangming was despicable and shameless. He took advantage of the time when they were comprehending the mysteries of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm to launch a sneak attack on them, severely injuring them. Not only did he take away the mysteries of the Sage Monarch Mystery Realm, but he also took away their Wen Dao. If they didn't take revenge, they wouldn't be gentlemen. The 3 of them even threatened that they wouldn't give up until they killed Song Tangming. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, and the Sage Monarch College was instantly in an uproar. Because of this, Zhong Zhouyan and the other 2 finally learned how amazing Song Tangming was. He had violently passed the 18 stages of the strange gate path, killed a saint in the Nirvana realm, and trampled on the son of the subduing general, Yang Lini. They couldn't help but be shocked. Song Tangming was far more amazing than they had thought. Not only was no one comparable to him in terms of Wen Dao, but he also left them behind in terms of martial Dao. Therefore, the 3 of them were a little nervous. They were afraid that they would lose their reputation if they failed to slander Song Tangming. Therefore, they dragged Shi Danfeng into this and pushed Song Tangming to the point of eternal damnation. Because of this, slander spread like wildfire. Song Tangming had used despicable methods to take Miss Xiaoxiang's virginity, and thus obtained her. Word spread like wildfire through the Sage Monarch Institute, and even to the central continent. The Sage Monarch College was shocked. The central state was shocked. Every day, many young talents rushed to the Sage Monarch College in anger, causing the entire Sage Monarch College to become the eye of a storm. Of course, there were people who doubted it, so the commotion wasn't that big, and the world wasn't turned upside down. But even so, Xiao Xiong's admirers couldn't stand it. At that moment, the students of the Sage Monarch College realized that their headmaster and the others didn't care about what was going on at all. It was only after they learned that the headmaster and the others were all in seclusion at that moment. Something big must have happened in the Saint Monarch Mystery Territory. Everyone from the Saint Monarch College had no more doubts. However, the Saint Monarch Mysteryland was extremely mysterious. No one could enter it, especially now. Therefore, everyone could only wait. Another 3 days later, Xiao Xiong's talented master Dan Feng was also sent out of the Saint King Mystery Realm. Her face was deathly pale. That mighty force had invaded her mind, and in the end, she couldn't resist at all. The reason she was able to escape in the end seemed to be because of that scoundrel. That mighty force had been merciful. As soon as she came out, she was drowned in public opinion. She was questioned by her admirers, and she couldn't help but be furious. She was also embarrassed, unable to show her face. The matter between Chu Yang and Zhong Juyen and the other two was easy to deal with, but the matter between her and Chu Yang was hard to say. Moreover, Zhong Juyen and the other two said that Chu Yang had taken her virginity, and she had only just gotten together with Chu Yang. It was close to the truth. Naturally, she couldn't say the truth. In the end, she could only lie, saying that she and Chu Yang had known each other for a long time. She couldn't lie about love at first sight, but she tacitly agreed to her relationship with Chu Yang. Chapter 2403. Because Chu Yang was slandered by Zhong Juyen and the other two, Shi Danfeng was angry and chased after them. However, there were also masters of the Earth Emperor realm around them, so she returned without success. The matter became more and more serious, but Zhuo Caichang and the others did not show up at all. Instead, it was the gigolo Wei Xian who showed up, laughed presumptuously, and said, "Song Tangming, that bastard, is really shameless." He even snatched his talented girl Xiaoxiang. He expressed that he was in so much pain that he wanted to die, and he must fight Song Tangming to death. Wei Xian, this gigolo, stirred up trouble. Chu Yang became the target of public criticism. Everyone wanted to beat him up, and everyone wanted to kill him. On the 8th day, such momentum reached its peak. Shi Danfeng could do nothing about it. She only hoped that Chu Yang would not come out of the Saint King secret realm so soon. In the Saint King secret realm, Chu Yang and the 9th generation Confucian master discussed for 8 days and 8 nights. He really wanted to become a supreme philosopher and all kinds of theorist. In the process, he even brought out the theory of evolution, natural selection, and survival of the fittest, and traced back how people were formed over a long period of time to prove the point that matter determined consciousness. The 9th generation Confucian master was indeed impressive. Chu Yang's fantasies were quickly recognized, digested, and even introduced new ideas. Chu Yang was full of admiration for the 9th generation Confucian master. Therefore, in the end, Chu Yang's statements were all recognized and passed the test. "I am a sinner." The 9th generation Confucian master had died completely. This was his obsession, which had not dissipated for thousands of years, and he still could not let go of it until the end. He sighed deeply. "No, you are a wise man, and a great man." Chu Yang did not completely agree with him. Although the 9th generation Confucian master had good intentions, but he did bad things and destroyed the entire era of Wen Dao with his own hands, his wisdom and courage were admirable. In the surging tide of the times, every reformer was not necessarily successful. The only difference was that the 9th generation Confucian master failed, and the consequences were too tragic. However, he could not be completely denied because of this, and he was worthless. At the very least, Chu Yang did not dare to show any disrespect to such a person. Chu Yang realized that what he had said was not convincing enough, so he added, "At least you've proved that your path is not feasible. You've given the future generations a great reference, and this is the greatest wealth. The rolling Yangtze River flows eastward, and the waves wash away all heroes. Right and wrong, Success and failure vanish in the blink of an eye. The green hills were still there, and the sun had set a few times. The white-haired fisherman and woodcutter sat on the riverbank, accustomed to the autumn moon and spring breeze. A pot of turbid wine was a happy reunion. So many things from the past to the present are just jokes. The ninth Confucian master recited slowly and finally said, "Where is the green mountain? Where is the setting sun? Where is the autumn moon and spring breeze? Laughing about the matters of the past and present, who is it?" The destruction of the Wen Dao epoch was too tragic. All living beings died. The ninth generation Confucian master could not let it go. Chu Yang could understand. Perhaps it should be said that if he were the ninth Confucian master, he would not be able to bear such a heavy burden and the interrogation of his conscience. The green mountains were still there, and the sun had set a few times. So many things from the past to the present are just jokes. Chu Yang said sincerely, "Senior, forgive this little one for being arrogant. This little one regards an epoch as a dynasty, and the rise and fall of an epoch is like the rise and fall of a dynasty. How about I judge Senior's right and wrong? Senior, you are not guilty. First, Senior, you are already a dead man. Ha ha." The ninth generation Confucian master could not help laughing loudly. When a person dies, everything is gone. The Wen Dao epoch is over, and everything is nothing. What is the point of worrying about it? Miserable, miserable, who was he putting on this show for? Second, Senior, you are a bluff, an unprecedented bluff. The ninth generation Confucian master could not help laughing again. He liked this evaluation of bluffing. Chapter 2404. This time, the ninth Confucian lord did not laugh. He suddenly asked, "Are you willing to be my disciple?" Chu Yang was caught off guard and was speechless. What sort of character was the ninth Confucian lord? Why would he need to be enlightened? If the ninth Confucian lord could not untie the knot in his heart and let go of his obsession, how could he help him do it? He was overestimating himself. This little one is willing. Saying this, he dropped to his knees and said, "This disciple greets teacher. Good, 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 haha." The ninth Confucian lord said a few times and then laughed. After that, there was no more sound. Chu Yang did not know what was going on, only that a sutra had been imprinted into his mind. The Great Harmony Sutra. In his surprise, he understood everything. The obsession of the teacher he had just acknowledged had imprinted everything he wanted to say, including the Great Harmony Sutra, into his mind, and then completely disappeared. "Teacher, have a safe journey." He dropped to his knees once more to send his teacher off. After standing up, his heart was filled with emotion, and many of his emotions were quickly covered by the mysteries of the Great Harmony Sutra. The chapter of enlightenment, the chapter of etiquette, the chapter of morality. In the blink of an eye, Chu Yang saw 3 illusory worlds as he searched for such a majestic and mysterious aura. These 3 worlds could be called the world of enlightenment, the world of etiquette, and the world of morality. Through enlightenment, the Confucian path instilled the concepts of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, trust, gentleness, respect, and frugality into everyone's mind, thus forming the various etiquettes and morals of the world. In the Great Harmony Sutra, this was the first level. Through this, one could enter the minds of others and control them. The second level was even more mysterious and difficult to understand. Chu Yang could only memorize it, unable to comprehend it for the time being. Along with the appearance of the 3 worlds of education, etiquette, and morality, in search of these 3 worlds, in the darkness, lights were lit up one after another, spreading out infinitely and finally forming a huge net. This net could be described as an inescapable net that caught everyone in the world, the net of the mind. It's really amazing. To be more precise, Chu Yang was horrified. If he could grasp such power, it would be extraordinary. If he wanted to use it to do evil, the consequences would be unimaginable. He was even worried that if he grasped such a terrifying power, he would lose control, lose himself in such power and doing whatever he wanted. These were definitely not empty words. A supreme technique like the Great Harmony Scripture was really too shocking and terrifying. The amount of power it could seize was unimaginably enormous. He could not even describe this feeling. To say that he was in control of a nuclear arsenal, such an analogy could not be compared at all, because he could easily control anyone with the help of the Deity Sutra, which was much more terrifying than a nuclear bomb. There was no reverence, only now did Chu Yang realize how terrifying this was. Fortunately, there were too many powerful figures in the Tianhun world, especially in the Central Plains. For example, Zhuo Caichang, Yu Fuji, and the other four. Chu Yang could feel them, but he did not dare to easily enter their minds. From the net of the mind, he could feel all kinds of emotions. Ordinary people would think of daily necessities, and then think of their wives, children, and parents, and all kinds of other trivial matters. Martial artists would think of all kinds of techniques, who to beat, how strong to be able to not be bullied, the 7 emotions and 6 desires, all the emotions of a person. Chu Yang could almost feel them all in an instant. It made him feel as if he had become the embodiment of the heavenly Tao, as if he was in control of everything in the world. There was nothing he could not do, nothing he could not do. Waking up with a killing sword, lying drunk on a beauty's knee. Chapter 2405. The Great Assimilation Scripture could not be described with words. If such a supreme technique were to be spread out, the entire middle ground would fall into a frenzy. Grasping it was like holding a hot potato in one's hand at all times. Teacher only asked me to be his disciple and he actually gave me such a supreme technique. Isn't he afraid that I will commit crimes? When Chu Yang thought of this, he could only smile bitterly and shake his head. As a teacher, when passing such a scripture to his disciple, he would definitely give him some advice before passing it to his disciple. However, the 9th Confucian master was too reckless. Teacher, you really have confidence in me. Chu Yang could only sigh. To be honest, he did not have much confidence in himself because it was too easy to lose control after grasping such a supreme technique. He would completely sink into depravity and destroy his life completely. In fact, he regretted accepting such an inheritance because after accepting such an inheritance, he had to constantly remind himself not to be willful. Otherwise, he would make a huge mistake. A single mistake could lead to everlasting sorrow. This was the case for ordinary people, but it was even more so for those who grasped great power. The greater the power one grasped, the greater the consequences would be. His teacher, the 9th Confucian master, was the best proof of this. He directly destroyed the Wen Dao era. If he destroyed an era, he would never be able to get over such a knot in his heart. Be careful, be careful. I definitely cannot use the Great Assimilation Scripture easily, Chu Yang secretly warned himself in his heart. Then, he began to cultivate. Buzz. Spirit force gushed out and enveloped him. Then, with another move, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the heart net. In such a short time, he had already left the Sage King's secret realm. When he reappeared, he was already at the place where Bing Kuan died in Zhuangyuan Mountain. It was very shocking. At this moment, even he was inexplicably shocked. His entire body trembled. It's really terrifying. The heart net is not only like the heavenly Tao, but also like a national road network specially opened for me. I can move freely, and I can reach all directions with just a thought. However, I can go anywhere that mortals can go. He was frightened once again, but he was even more excited. With the heart net in hand, even great emperors could forget about killing him. He could escape at any time. The heart network was a network of the soul. It was originally an illusion, but it could switch between illusion and reality. It was extremely dreamy and inconceivable. It was completely beyond human imagination. Chu Yang was like a child who had just gotten a new toy. He carefully felt all of this and slowly experienced this wonderful feeling. He was very clear that the reason why his body could enter the heart net was naturally because of the spirit force enveloping him. Spirit force was the means of transportation, while the mental network was the road network. Buzz, buzz, buzz. From the heaven and earth, inexplicable mysteries surged over. It seemed to be the great Tao, but it also seemed to be something else. They quickly gathered, condensing into pieces of formation seals that floated around Chu Yang. They were extremely bright and resplendent, like the stars in the night sky. They flickered and shone brilliantly. Among them was Chu Yang and Star-Lord. He had finally broken through and become a true Saint Array master. The joy in his heart was even greater. Chapter 2406. To a certain extent, the heart net is. But it is the heavenly net, which should be comparable to the heavenly way. If I can enter the heart net, then can I enter the heavenly way? He suddenly had such a throbbing. Once he succeeded, he could kill a great emperor in the Nirvana realm. In the martial arts system of the heavenly spirit world, the saints became their own great Tao, and the great Tao entered the reincarnation cycle, and became the earthly sovereign. Then, with the help of their own Tao, they entered the heavenly way, and their souls were placed in the heavenly way, and they became the great emperor. When the earthly sovereign realm entered the reincarnation cycle, it was not his own body or life that entered the reincarnation cycle, but the great Tao. The reincarnation cycle was not the reincarnation cycle of several lives, but the reincarnation cycle of the great Tao. The reincarnation cycle of the great Tao was actually a test of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Many saints' great Tao could not withstand such a test. Once the great Tao entered the reincarnation cycle, it completely collapsed and died. Although Chu Yang's body carried the great Tao, he had not become a saint, and had not stepped into the earthly sovereign realm, but he had found the way to enter the heavenly way, which was very heaven-defying. Phew! Finally, he let out a long breath and gave up the idea because it was too risky. Once he failed, he would die completely. He was very clear about this point. Once it involved the great Tao, it was extremely dangerous, especially when it involved the heavenly way. Reckless attempts could only lead to eternal damnation and a tragic death. He quickly suppressed the throbbing and then laughed, "Let's put this aside for now. But if I can kill saints in the Nirvana realm, kill earthly sovereigns, and kill great emperors, it should not be difficult to realize such a wild ambition." After a while, he completely calmed down. While he was reminiscing about the ice koan on Zhuangyuan Mountain, he suddenly realized that the world around him had become clearer than ever before. He could even faintly smell the ice koan's aura, and his mind was shaken again. Koan is not dead. Although a long time had passed, Chu Yang still caught the breath of the ice koan with the help of the Thatong scripture. The ice koan seemed to use the whole world as an ocean, and wanted to be reborn in it. It was no longer a sea, but a sea. This in itself was a kind of transcendence. The ice koan was transcendence. Ha, good job, koan. When I see you again, I will be able to do whatever I want in the central plains. When Chu Yang confirmed this point, he was extremely happy and laughed heartily, because there was absolutely nothing happier than this. Compared to obtaining the Great Harmony scripture, this news made him feel much happier. He was sure that when he saw the ice koan again, the ice koan would be an extremely powerful existence. Sure. After staying in the top scorer mountain for a period of time, he once again enveloped himself with his spirit force and entered the heart net. He roamed about, getting used to the environment and familiarizing himself with everything. In the heart net, he seemed to have obtained absolute freedom. He was like a Kuan Peng roaming the universe. Such a spell was even more shocking than spacetime spells. After a while, Chu Yang returned to the Saint Monarch Mystery Domain. After paying respects to his master, the ninth Confucian Lord, he left the Sage Monarch mystical realm and returned to the Sage Monarch College. Song Tangming is out. Song Tangming is out. Song Tangming is really out. As soon as Chu Yang came out of the Sage Monarch mystical realm, he was in an extremely good mood with a smile on his face. Immediately, he heard many shouts. Chapter 2407. What's going on? It seems like these things want to attack me. Because of the Thatong Sutra and the Mind Network, Chu Yang could easily see through everyone's emotional reactions at this moment. As a result, he was extremely disgusted. Everyone had no secrets in front of him. Without another word, he directly shut off this perception. He wanted to live like a normal person. In addition, sometimes knowing too much was a kind of pain and made one feel that the world was incomparably dark. This was definitely not a lie. If one could see through everyone's hearts, they would definitely see endless ugliness and darkness. It's really Song Tangming. There's no mistake. Hurry up and inform the three absolutes. Song Tangming is dead for sure this time. Who does he think he is? He dares to treat Xiaoxiang's talent like this. Xiaoxiang's talent. When Chu Yang heard this, he finally understood. His wife had caused him trouble again. As expected of a femme fatale. Song Tangming, you despicable thing. You actually used such a dirty method to take Xiaoxiang's talent for yourself. What's done can't be undone. What a good idea. Do you think you can think of it and no one else can think of it? Force yourself on her. Mph, I'll let you know what public anger means later. I'll let you know what it means to die without a complete corpse and be torn into pieces. There was no need to wait. Chu Yang now knew the public anger. There were countless people surrounding the entrance of the sage monarch mystic realm. At this moment, the eyes of these animals were all as red as rabbits. I don't know how I came out of the sage monarch mystic realm, but you've been blocking me here. How much do you hate me? He was able to completely sense that sort of extreme resentment and hatred. He also did not understand how the words "what's done can't be undone" or "force yourself on her" spread. Could it be because of that girl, Shi Danfeng? Chuang was not afraid of those angry rabbit eyes. He touched his chin and muttered to himself, it shouldn't be. How could she say such a shameful thing? Could it be that she has realized the danger and wants to tie me down tightly? The latter possibility was just Chu Yang's self-ridicule. He had realized that things were not that simple. He had heard the words three absolutes just now, so he had a general guess in his heart. Although using the heart net allowed him to know everything in an instant, he would never use it even if he was beaten to death. Shoo, shoo. At this time, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. When Chu Yang looked up, it seemed that there was a flock of birds flying towards him from the void in front of him. The void was densely packed with people. Kill that bastard Song Tangming. Kill him, we must kill him. If he doesn't die, my anger won't be quelled. We must seek justice for ourselves. During this time, many people sensed Chu Yang's presence from afar, and began to yell crazily, as if Chu Yang had a blood feud with them. Hashuan, I've become public enemy number 1 again. Although Chu Yang was not afraid, he was not happy. He cursed in his heart. Dong dong dong. The ground shook violently. 3 figures were the fastest. They arrived in the blink of an eye like a beam of light. The 3 of them landed on the ground and beat the ground like a big drum. They surrounded Chu Yang in a triangular formation. Bastard, you actually dare to come out. You really don't know what's good for you. If I were you, I would hide in the Sage Monarch secret realm until I die of old age. Otherwise, I would be torn apart alive when I come out and beg for death. Son of a bitch, I'll definitely repay you for all the despicable things you did in the Sage Monarch secret realm today. Not a little less. The moment the 3 of them saw Chu Yang, they seemed to have thought of some hatred and humiliation that was deeply engraved in their hearts. They seemed to be about to explode. Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, Wu Fang. Chapter 2408. He didn't know how many people had arrived in a short period of time. The crowd of people was densely packed. People were everywhere. It made Chu Yang feel as if he was in a bull ring. However, he was going to fight 3 very strong bulls, not just one. He was the bullfighter, and Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang were the 3 very strong bulls. It seemed that because one person fighting 3 bulls like this, it was very rare, so it attracted a lot of attention, and countless people came to watch. It was a hubbub of voices, and it was very noisy. Everyone who came to watch the bullfight seemed to be talking about how Chu Yang, the bullfighter, was going to fight later, how he would lose, and how badly he would lose. Of course, Zhong Jiuyan and the other 2 bulls were also the focus of discussion, because they were 3 very famous bulls, and were even known as the best of the bulls. Their fighting strength was off the charts, and who knew how many bullfighters they had killed in the past. Moreover, between the bullfighters and the bulls, there was a pink story of a peerless beauty, which made it even more lively. Hehe, 3 seniors, where did you get the courage to stand in front of this great genius so arrogantly? Could it be that you want to be slapped in the face? Chu Yang glanced at the 3 people who were rushing over, and picked his ears, and said very casually, "Wait, this gigolo is not here yet, your performance can't start yet, please wait a moment, this gigolo will be here soon. Someone interrupted at the wrong time, and before Zhong Juyan and the other two could angrily counterattack, a white figure had already shot over. Immediately, a gigolo that was more delicate, fairer, and more beautiful than a woman was imprinted in everyone's eyes, causing many people to exclaim in surprise, and let out sounds of disbelief. This white figure was sloppy and roguish. He found a place and took out a stool. Please note that this stool was definitely not something transformed by cultivation, but a small stool made of real materials, made of wood by a carpenter, and it was very delicate, obviously specially made. It was specially made to watch a show. There were not many people like this, and it was even rarer to have such a gigolo and be so unconventional. Chu Yang's kindred spirit, the gigolo Wei Xian. He was also a joker. This gigolo has already sat down casually. My kindred spirit, you can start your performance. Wei Xian sat on the stool casually, like a local rich man ordering opera singers to start the performance. Wait, my performance hasn't started yet. How can you guys start in advance? As soon as Wei Xian's voice fell, there was an unconventional voice not far away, and then 4 or 5 young people dressed in gold and silver flew over and landed next to Wei Xian. Among these 4 or 5 people, one of them was holding a folding fan. He thought that he was cool and unrestrained as he fanned himself. His pair of sharp eyes immediately stared at Chu Yang. He poked his finger and loudly shouted, "Hey, Song Tangming, you have big guts. You actually dared to have designs on Xiao Xiong's talented girl. Did you get the permission of this rich man? Be careful or I'll smash you to death with money." Another clown, stealing the show in all sorts of ways. Since when was of these jokers? Chu Yang couldn't help but cast a sidelong glance at this clown. Xia Wanjin, since when did this guy become like this? He was very surprised. What surprised him the most was that Xia Wanjin was already a 9th level saint. Furthermore, he was definitely a very powerful one. Chapter 2409. This thing is advancing really fast. I didn't expect it to change so much in such a short time. Chu Yang was delighted to see a familiar face. He smiled like a blooming flower. At the same time, he heard a lot about Xia Wanjin from the crowd. Isn't that Xia Wanjin from the Xia family? He's a rising genius in the Tai capital. I heard that he managed to advance from the Nirvana realm to the 9th Order Saint realm in just 2 months. That's amazing. Not only that, it's said that he can communicate with the Emperor Seal of the Xia family's old ancestor. He's the most important successor of the Xia family. The Xia family is as rich as a country. Even though they've declined, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Now that Xia Wanjin is here, Song Tangming will definitely suffer. Let's not talk about other things. If Song Tangming dares to touch Xiaoxiang's talent, Xia Wanjin can kill him with money. During this time, Xia Wanjin had countless chances to speak. However, when he saw that bullshit Song Tangming, his eyelids twitched and he immediately restrained himself. He also noticed Chu Yang's strange reaction. He was surprised to see him and even seemed a little happy. This caused the bad feeling in his heart to become even more intense. What's wrong with this? Fortunately, I'm using Chu Hang's method. Even if I'm slapped in the face, there's still room to maneuver. Xia Wanjin's mind raced. He realized that Chu Yang was extremely cunning and treacherous. He didn't expect such a frivolous attitude to have such a great effect. No matter what, I'll give him a big mouth first. He made up his mind and rolled up his sleeves. He shouted at Chu Yang, "Hey, you bastard, why are you surprised?" He became more and more agitated as he continued, "Are you surprised that I'm rich and have a lot of money? But why are you smiling so happily? I'll make it clear that I don't have any special hobbies. Don't disgust me." When Chu Yang heard this, he was stunned again. Is this still Xia Wanjin? When did Xia Wanjin become so despicable? He dared to guarantee that this was definitely not the Xia Wanjin he knew. Even if Xia Wanjin's parents or relatives saw him like this, they would probably be dumbfounded and astonished to the extreme. "You bastard, don't pretend that you're my comrade. I know you're just putting on an act. You haven't learned anything about shameless Upanishad." Chu Yang's words caused Xia Wanjin's eyelids to twitch violently. Why did this disdainful tone sound so familiar to him? Let this gigolo appraise and see if fellow Daoist opinion is correct. When Xia Wanjin's eyelids twitched, the gigolo had already stood up from the small stool. He walked around Xia Wanjin in a carefree manner and sized him up. Only then did he curl his lips and say with extreme disdain, "Fellow Song is an experienced person, his judgment is correct. This little brother is really just for show." He completely didn't comprehend the true meaning of shamelessness. What a pity. Fellow Song Tongdao's level is indeed very high. Then, Wei Xian patted Xia Wanjin's shoulder and encouraged him earnestly, "The path of shamelessness is long and dangerous. Little brother, you haven't succeeded in being shameless. You still need to work harder." Xia Wanjin's eyes widened like copper bells. However, no matter how hard he stared, he couldn't make Wei Xian embarrassed. Instead, Wei Xian slowly turned into a bird in his eyes. To be precise, he was a parrot. Chapter 24:10. Song Tangming, you despicable villain. You're about to die, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. Originally, Zhong Jiuyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang could have attacked Chu Yang long ago. However, Song Tangming was too powerful after all. Therefore, in order to gain more support and show their righteousness, they had to wait. However, the three of them didn't expect that Xia Wanjin, who looked very powerful, was shameless because of his so-called bullshit shamelessness. What kindred spirit! His shamelessness was almost the same as Song Tangming. This was intolerable. The scene was too funny and almost destroyed the three of them. They couldn't let it continue. However, Chu Yang didn't care about their violent reactions. His eyes suddenly looked into the distance. Everyone seemed to have completely ignored the three of them, and all of them suddenly looked into the distance. Suddenly, a few voices came from afar. They couldn't hear what they were talking about, but they were strangely ethereal, as if they were transmitted from the ninth heaven. It also sounded like the whispers of immortals, attracting everyone's attention in an instant. Someone else is coming. Swoosh. Sure enough, a long rainbow came directly from there, like a bridge across the other shore, crossing immortals and mortals. As soon as the rainbow arrived, there was a series of screams. Many people were seriously injured by the impact and were thrown away. Then, a series of immortal and heavenly music came. In a sea of auspicious light, a few young men and women floated down. These men and women were all wearing feathered clothes and star crowns. Around them were illusory and misty, with rays of light lingering around them. They looked like they had come from the immortal world, and the moment they arrived, they seemed to make people smell the scent of the immortal realm. These people were majestic and fearful, and there was a kind of threatening sharpness on their bodies, which made people very wary. Chu Yang sensed more than the others. The heavenly gates above the heads of these young men and women seemed to have opened a void passage that connected to some unknown world. There was an endless stream of air surging in and pouring into their bodies, causing their cultivation to constantly increase. Immortal? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. The heavenly soul world's immortals were actually from a destroyed epoch, the immortal epoch. Although the immortal epoch was destroyed, there were many people and even many sects that survived during the immortal epoch. They had once revealed the tip of the iceberg 10,000 years ago. At that time, the entire heavenly spirit realm was shaken. However, after that, they disappeared without a trace. In the recent 100 years, the survivors of the immortal era, as well as the sects, started to become active in the heavenly spirit world. This caused the people of the heavenly spirit world to have a deeper understanding of the heavenly spirit world. This also caused them to be even more shocked because the survivors of the immortal era were simply too powerful and too shocking. In the central continent, there was a saying that grand emperors were inferior to immortals, or grand emperors were not immortals. What the former meant was that the great emperors were still limited to the heavenly soul realm, while the immortals had jumped out of the entire heavenly soul realm. If the heavens and earth were destroyed, the immortals wouldn't be destroyed. If the heavens and earth decayed, the immortals wouldn't die. The latter was that grand emperors were not immortals. It meant that although grand emperors had great power, they had the same lifespan as the heaven and earth. They could be considered immortals, but they were definitely not immortal emperors. Whether it was the former or the latter, it only explained one thing: the strength of the immortal era, and the strength of the immortal era. There were as many sages as dogs in the central region, and grand emperors were everywhere. This saying was also caused by the appearance of the immortal era. Many people used the techniques of the immortal era to break through to the sage, earthly sovereign, and even grand emperor realm. Many sages, earthly sovereigns, and even grand emperors emerged. Of course, although there were many of them, it wasn't to the extent where sages were as numerous as dogs, and grand emperors were everywhere. It was just that the number of sages and grand emperors was definitely not small. Because of the strength of the immortal era, they were highly respected and had an extraordinary status. The sects that survived the immortal era were generally called immortal sects. Obviously, these people should be people from the immortal era, people from the immortal sects. Chapter 24:11. I'm immortal, and they're immortals. This is tantamount to me being a fish on a chopping block. This was not a good feeling. Chu Yang was feeling this way now. The most important reason was that these people from immortal sects were definitely here to cause trouble for him. Everything he knew about immortals and the immortal epoch came from Shi Danfeng. If not for Shi Danfeng, he would probably have known about this much later. After all, he had not been in the central province for long. Naturally, Shi Danfeng did not take the initiative to tell him all this. In the sage monarch's secret realm, Shi Danfeng did not pass the test and her mind was about to be completely controlled. His teacher, who was also the 9th Confucian master, asked him what he wanted. His answer was obvious, so Shi Danfeng was able to escape. Although his teacher agreed to let him save Shi Danfeng's test also had to be taken by him. Therefore, during this process, he learned about Shi Danfeng's background and everything about the immortals and the people of the immortal epoch. In fact, Shi Danfeng was also from the immortal epoch, the Xiaoxiang sect. Based on Shi Danfeng's memory, Chu Yang not only knew that these young men and women were here to cause trouble for him, but also knew that they were from the immortal sect, the Rui sect. He also recognized all of them. Most of the people who came riding the rainbow were handsome men and beautiful women. Every one of them contained great power. However, if one was confused by the illusion, one would definitely not be able to detect the most powerful person among them, Rui Zi. Among these young men and women, there was a man who looked extremely ordinary. He was like a scholar or a scholar in the secular world. He did not seem to have any cultivation. He stood in the air without any auspicious aura or great majesty. He was completely different from the others. He looked like a servant. However, because of this, Chu Yang knew more about his extraordinariness returning to one's natural state. This person was Rui Zi, the first successor disciple of the immortal sect, the Rui sect. He had been in love with Xiaoxiang's sect for a long time, but he had never won her heart. Therefore, when he came, Chu Yang knew that he was in trouble. I'm afraid it will be a little troublesome to deal with this Rui child. Chu Yang unconsciously frowned. If he hadn't obtained the inheritance of the Wen Dao era, he wouldn't have had the confidence to deal with this Rui Zi. The arrival of Rui Zi and the rest of the people from the celestial sect silenced the entire place. Not a single sound could be heard. Zhong Juyan greets Rui Zi and everyone. Zhao Lang greets Rui Zi. Wu Fang greets Rui Zi. When Zhong Juyan and the other two saw Rui Zi, their eyes immediately lit up, and they hurriedly greeted Rui Zi. The three of them showed enough reverence. When they saluted, they were very humble. They bowed again and again. They were even more respectful than a subject meeting the emperor. Regardless of whether it was respect or reverence, it was all because of absolute power and power. However, to Zhong Juyan and the other two, they still had hope and extravagant hopes. They hoped that the Rui Zi would be able to give them some pointers and extravagantly hope that the Rui Zi would reward them greatly for their performance. Greetings, Rui. Greetings, Rui. Greetings, Rui. After Zhong Juyan and the other two, everyone else also saluted Rui Zi and the rest as if they were greeting their own emperor. Among the people present, Chu Yang, the pretty boy Wei Xian, and Xia Wanjin were the only three who didn't salute Rui Zi. It was very eye-catching. Is the celestial sect so powerful that everyone has to suck up to them? Chapter 24:12. Yu Yizi did not even look Chu Yang in the eye. He only cupped his fists and returned the greeting to everyone. He looked humble, but his arrogance was undeniably evident, and it was even more vivid. Everyone, I came here in a hurry and was a little careless. I'm very sorry for injuring so many people. As Ruizi spoke, the people from the Ruyi sect beside him couldn't help but reveal looks of disdain. It was as if they were wondering how he could be so weak. They had merely come here on a rainbow, yet he couldn't even block it. As a token of my apology, here are some fortune pills. Treat them as an apology. I hope that everyone will accept them. Every person who was injured by the rainbow accurately received a white pill, without missing a single one. Fortune pills. It's actually the fortune pills. It's true. It's really the fortune pills. We've made a huge profit this time. Loud cries of surprise immediately erupted. Ecstatic expressions appeared on the faces of those who obtained the fortune pills as they hurriedly kowtowed to Ruizi again. Ruizi merely smiled faintly. However, the expressions of the people beside him became even more disdainful. Many thanks, Ruizi. Rui's voice of gratitude quickly resounded throughout the place, causing Chu Yang's frown to deepen. It was just a mere medicinal pill, but so many people were deeply grateful for it. There must be something mysterious about this so-called fortune pellet. Chu Yang had only seen a portion of Yu Danfeng's memories when he was expelling the mighty power that had invaded her body. He hadn't seen everything. After all, everyone had their own secrets that they didn't want others to know. Hence, he hadn't gone overboard. You are Song Tangming. Amidst the excitement and joy, the Ruizi suddenly looked at Chu Yang and spoke. Immediately, the entire place fell silent. Everyone felt nervous for no reason, as if they were facing a great enemy. This Song Tangming was too insensible, and it was very likely that he would anger the Ruizi. Therefore, Chu Yang was not surprised. What was to come would come in the end. However, he wasn't happy. He didn't like it when someone looked down on him from above. I am. He met Rui's gaze carelessly, crossed his arms, and said with a grin, I am a pear blossom pressing against a begonia, the one who is loved by all, the one who has never been seen before and will never be seen again, Song Tangming. Waraha. As he spoke, he put his hands on his hips and laughed wildly, the one who wants to steal this marshal's prestige. Have you ever been to a brothel? Have you ever been to a brothel? Have you ever stolen or swindled? Hurry up and report it. Interesting, very interesting. When the Ruizi heard this, he was like a prince who found it very novel after seeing how the poor lived. He couldn't help but smile faintly. Waha, of course it's interesting. It would be strange if it wasn't. Chu Yang didn't feel good being looked down upon like this. He continued to laugh wildly and said, I've always been an extremely interesting person. If you feel that I'm not interesting, then it's not that I want to criticize you, but your life will certainly be very boring. You need to work harder. Are you going to show me how unruly and unrestrained you are? Chapter 24:13. Haha. Chu Yang's signature chuckle was heard as he sneered in his heart. Did I specially prepare you to be unruly and unrestrained? Who do you think you are? At that moment, when Xia Wanjin saw his expression again, this extremely familiar expression, he immediately felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He trembled and roared in his heart, it can't be. Could it be that this bullshit Song Tangming is actually Pit Chu? Suddenly, he somewhat understood why the gigolo was looking at that lousy bird. It was clear that Chu Hang had once again created a parrot, but this time, the parrot had become a person. You're really narcissistic, but I found a good point about you. You're actually more narcissistic than me. There are definitely not many people who can surpass me in this aspect. You should be proud of this. When Chu Yang looked at Ruizi and gave him a thumbs up as a compliment, Xia Wanjin no longer had any doubts in his heart. He immediately concluded that the so-called Song Tangming was definitely that goddamn Chu Hang. No wonder there's actually something that can break through the 18 stages of the strange gate road with brute force. No wonder there's actually something that can kill a saint at the Nirvana realm. No wonder the talented Xiaoxiang was taken down by lightning so quickly. He immediately figured it out. Why did a bluff suddenly appear in Zhengzhou? So it was Chu Hang. It was Chu Hang. What was there to make a fuss about? In this aspect, he was a professional, an expert, and a beast. Damn Chu Hang, you son of a bitch. It's not enough that you stole the talented Xinxiang girl that I liked. Now, the talented Xiaoxiang girl is my last hope, and you actually stole her. You son of a bitch, are you forcing me to fight with my life on the line? Xie Wanjin was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He cursed in his heart. Chu Hang was such a bitch. His dog claws were simply covering the sky. All the peerless beauties in the world were snatched into his bowl, not even leaving a single dregs for him. This was really intolerable. Acting presumptuously in front of me is not a very wise choice for you. The Rui child's icy voice jolted Xie Wanjin out of his own world. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. The Rui child was angry. Being more impressive than me is not a very wise choice for you. Chu Yang smiled indifferently. Tit for tat. His sloppy expression was gone, and the atmosphere was tense to the extreme in silence. Shua. At this moment, another person arrived. A rainbow light shot over, and a fragrance instantly filled the air. A woman wearing a veil had already arrived at the scene. Xiao Xiong, talented girl. All of a sudden, everyone recognized him and cast their gazes over. Rui Zi immediately nodded at Shi Danfeng, but she ignored him. Wife, can you make some noise? Also, before you come, can you give me a message so that I can welcome you? Wife. These two words pierced into everyone's hearts like knives and swords. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Then, anger burned the heavens. It was as if the heavens were enraged. Countless angry gazes were directed at Chu Yang like tongues of fire. However, he didn't care at all and continued to show off. He complained to Shi Danfeng, "Look, this is great. Your husband wasn't prepared. How am I supposed to prepare a grand welcoming ceremony for you?" Buzz. The void suddenly vibrated endlessly. The Rui child couldn't tolerate Chu Yang calling her his wife. In an instant, it was as if a king was enraged, causing the world to suddenly sink into a deathly stillness. It was extremely oppressive. Everyone felt as if a knife was pressed against their necks. They felt cold all over and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Many people started to tremble, and some even collapsed to the ground. The surrounding void seemed to have been frozen, and the murderous intent seemed to have materialized. Not many people could withstand such murderous intent. The Rui child was extremely terrifying and unimaginable. Once he was angry, it seemed as if the world would change color. Chapter 24:14. Rui Zi was enraged. Heaven and earth seemed to be frozen. Everyone present felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They felt cold from head to toe and were on tenterhooks, not daring to move at all. Pretty boy Wei Xian and Xie Wanjin also looked serious. Rui Zi was a member of the Immortal sect, the first true disciple of the Rui sect. He was extremely shocking and definitely not easy to deal with. Wife, someone wants to bully your husband. Amidst the stillness, this sudden shout left everyone in disarray. Some even saw stars. They were extremely nervous and even fearful as they waited for the earth-shattering change. Who would have thought that they would be caught off guard and be so shameless? They almost wanted to kneel down in front of such shamelessness. Haha. Pretty boy Wei Xian laughed like crazy. Xie Wanjin was speechless. He was even more certain in his heart. If this thing isn't Chu Hang, I'll cut off my head and use it as a chamber pot. Shi Danfeng's delicate body also trembled violently. She was also caught off guard. She never thought that the scoundrel would shout at her like that. Her face suddenly turned red and she was too ashamed to show her face. However, she had no choice. As her chest rose and fell, her beautiful eyes swept towards Rui Zi. All of her anger was vented on him. Who are you trying to scare? Domineering but not elegant. Chu Yang immediately shouted, Wife, don't bother about this matter. Your gentleness and elegance have disappeared. The consequences are too serious. I'm about to break out in cold sweat. Shi Danfeng's delicate body swayed and she almost fainted. This scoundrel actually said that she was unladylike in front of others. Who was she doing this for? Wife, don't be agitated. Be careful not to affect the baby. Shi Danfeng still hadn't recovered from her shock when another sentence came out of nowhere. Her head was dizzy and she was so embarrassed that she almost died. Bang bang bang. She moved and instantly appeared in front of Chu Yang. She directly beat up Chu Yang in front of everyone, causing pretty boy Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin to laugh like crazy. This was too outrageous. Was this something a normal person could do? Everyone also felt as if they had been beaten up. The sudden incident between Chu Yang and Xiao Xiong almost turned them into idiots in an instant. Rui Zi was practically dumbfounded in midair. The talented girl he had admired and pursued for a long time was actually being played by someone he looked down on again and again. He had never seen Xiao Xiong lose her composure like this before, and he had never seen her with such strong emotions. She loved and hated someone so much. Song Tangming, how do you want to die? In front of Xiaoxiang, Rui Zi no longer maintained his composure. He completely tore apart all of his pretenses. Disgust, anger, and all sorts of other emotions were completely released. His face was extremely gloomy, as if his ancestral grave had been dug up. He. Chu Yang was proud, but he still felt that it was not enough. He pulled Shi Danfeng into his arms and even took a bite of her when she was not paying attention. Only then did he smile at Rui Zi and say, "Hitting is kissing, scolding is not loving enough. Is this enough? If you have the ability, come and bite me, shameless. Everyone has the right to punish a cultured scum. Song Tangming, you should be hacked into pieces and die without a burial ground." Rui Zi's heart was directly pierced by Chu Yang's knife. However, before he could go crazy, Zhong Juoyan, Zhao Lang, and Wu Fang had already rushed out to attack Chu Yang on his behalf. Chapter 24:15. The three of them naturally knew which was more important between the civil path and the martial path. The civil path was only used to disguise their identity and make them appear noble. The martial path was the essence. When their strength increased, who would dare not fear them? Misfortune was a blessing in disguise. The three of them could not help but want to laugh. The humiliation in the sage monarch mystic realm had turned into a great blessing at this moment. Chu Yang saw through the thoughts of the three of them. He despised them in his heart, but he said with a smile, "Can you change the last sentence of these three things? What should be cut into pieces, die without a burial place, and have no lethality at all?" After a pause, he sneered at Rui Zi, "You little thing, are you planning to let these three spineless pieces of trash hinder me? What are you thinking? Are you really stupid or pretending to be stupid?" Everyone was shocked. These words were too arrogant. Song Tangming was only at the peak of the Nirvana realm. How could he kill 3 ninth stage saints? Are you worthy of my attack? Rui Zi was able to control his emotions after his extreme rage. "TSK. Chu Yang said disdainfully, "You're only at this level. The so-called immortal sect is only SOSO. Whoosh." The crowd was in an uproar. Not only did Song Tangming mock Rui Zi, but he also mocked the immortal sect. Did he have something to rely on, or was he so ignorant that he was fearless? "Ha ha." Zhong Juoyan laughed loudly, "Song Tangming, you bastard. How can you compare to Rui Zi? If he attacks, he will really dirty his hands. Why use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? Even my hands will be dirty if I kill a piece of trash. I want you to beg for death." Zhao Lang and Wu Fang also laughed. The more arrogant Chu Yang was, the more benefits they would get after killing Chu Yang. There was nothing better than this. "Can't even beg for death," he said impatiently. "Your last sentence is really too cliché. There's no novelty at all. So, this commander wants to severely criticize you." "That's right. That's why I want to criticize you. Haha." The gigolo Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin laughed like crazy again. However, only the two of them could laugh out loud. Only the two of them could laugh. The two of them laughed even more bafflingly. What was so funny about this? Could it be that Song Tongming's arrogant and ignorant words were really that laughable? While Shi Danfeng was nervous, she saw Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin laughing non-stop. She suddenly felt that her understanding of Chu Yang wasn't as good as Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin's. The Ruyi child's expression darkened even more. Song Tangming, why are you so arrogant? Wu Fang roared angrily, you don't even know what you're talking about. I've never seen a fool like you. I alone am enough to kill this idiot. Brother Zhong, Brother Wu, don't interfere. Zhao Lang was even more direct. He stood out and wanted to kill Chu Yang by himself. Chu Yang could kill a saint in the Nirvana realm, but the saint he killed was only a first-level saint. Moreover, it was an old servant. How could a saint like that compare to him? There was a great difference between saints. Besides the level of saints, there was also the difference between ordinary and extraordinary saints. If Yang Lini's old servant Yang Fu was an ordinary saint, then Zhao Lang was an extraordinary saint. Although they were both saints, he could kill at least hundreds of Yang Fu, because he was a genius, while Yang Fu's talent was only average. Wife, go to the side and watch the show. Chu Yang let go of Shi Danfeng. She blushed and warned, be careful. Okay. Chu Yang nodded lightly. Chapter 24:16. You can make your move now. Chu Yang was extremely frivolous as he hooked his finger at Zhao Lang. Mph, Song Tangming, do you think you're invincible just because you can kill a saint in the Nirvana realm? Today, I'll show you how stupid you are. Roar. Before Zhao Lang could finish his words, 3 loud dragon roars were heard. Behind him, the void on his left and right twisted and turned into 3 huge dragons that were hundreds of feet long. It was as if they had used the void as material to condense a true dragon. Their methods were astonishing. Dong. Then, he took a step forward, and the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The heads of the 3 dragons connected and transformed again, forming a 3,000 feet long dragon. It covered the sky and the sun, and cast an enormous shadow. The vigorous aura of the great Tao swept through the entire area. This was naturally not a dragon, but Zhao Lang's Tao. The crowd was already exclaiming, the Tao of the dragon, Zhao Lang's Tao of the dragon, a great Tao that's 100 feet long can withstand the test of the first reincarnation, and so on. A great Tao that's hundreds of feet long can pass the 9 reincarnations and become an earthly sovereign. But Zhao Lang's great Tao is actually 300 feet long. Oh my god. A great Tao that's 300 feet long. Song Tangming will definitely die this time. There's no suspense. If he doesn't die, then there's no justice in this world. The length of the great Tao reflected the strength of the great Tao to a certain extent. Zhao Lang's great Tao that was 300 feet long was revealed. The crowd was shocked. They all thought that Chu Yang would definitely die, and there was no suspense. Chu Yang was unmoved. He didn't even move. Ant, are you scared out of your wits? Then I'll end your pitiful life and send you to hell, divine dragon Tao. Roar. Amidst the loud dragon roars, Zhao Lang entered the 300 feet long dragon and charged forward with his great Tao. He was like a dragon, and his Tao was like a dragon. His Tao was like a dragon, causing one's heart to sway. Pa. The dragon swung its tail, and with a crisp sound, the void was torn apart like a piece of paper. A spatial storm surged, and that part of the void was in chaos. Wherever the dragon passed, the void couldn't withstand it and exploded. His momentum was unstoppable. Gods and ghosts fled, shaking one's heart and soul. Everyone felt as if they were facing a falling star when they saw such a huge dragon rushing towards Chu Yang. They felt as if the end of the world was coming. Their breathing couldn't help but stagnate. They felt as if a great disaster was about to befall them. It was easy to imagine the pressure that Chu Yang was under. He casually stood where he was, letting his long hair flutter in the wind. The path of the dragon was as fast as lightning. Everywhere it passed, it arrived before the space that was crushed into pieces. Seeing that Chu Yang was about to lose his life on Zhao Lang's path, he finally made his move. But to everyone's disbelief, he actually just lightly stretched out his hand and grabbed that huge dragon. A body of flesh and blood against the great Tao. How could this be resisted? That was Tao, Zhao Lang's great Tao, Before it, the void was like a piece of paper, unable to withstand it at all. Was he crazy? However, an unbelievable scene happened. In front of the 3,000 feet long dragon, Chu Yang's hand, which was not worth mentioning, was so small that it could be ignored, actually blocked the huge dragon. It seemed to have some kind of magical power. Everyone was so shocked that their nerves went numb, and they became sluggish. They heard Zhao Lang's screams and saw him being thrown out of the huge dragon, but there was no reaction at all. The strangeness continued. The huge dragon instantly shrank, turning into a loach, and was caught by Chu Yang. He exerted force with his hand again, and that loach was really like a loach, directly crushed to death. It was effortless. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched the scene with blank eyes. The world was completely silent. Chu Yang's body burst out with endless rays of light in such silence. It was extremely dazzling, and completely submerged the world. However, it was only for a moment. Everyone didn't understand what was going on, and everything was already over. Bang! 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 When 3 muffled sounds rang out, everyone subconsciously looked over and found that Zhong Jiuyan, Wu Fang, and Zhao Lang had already died, but their hearts did not fluctuate at all. That was no longer important. What was important was that killing saints like killing chickens had become a reality. Song Tongming's cultivation was only in the Nirvana realm. How did he do it? This was like a world puzzle, and no one could understand it. Their minds were blank, and they fell into chaos. Perhaps only Song Tangming or Rui Zi could answer it. Chapter 24:17. Zhong Jiuyan and the other 2 died. Their hearts stopped beating and their blood began to coagulate. Their bodies lost their body temperature and quickly became cold. Everyone present seemed to be like the 3 of them. Their hearts stopped beating, their blood began to coagulate, and their bodies began to become cold. Cold to the bone. Ferocious ghosts appeared behind the dark night, a demon suddenly appeared in the void, or the hand of the Grim Reaper gently stroking their faces. It did not seem so terrifying and frightening. Not long ago, Chu Yang broke the record and killed a saint as a Nirvana realm cultivator. It was already unbelievable, but now he killed a saint as if he was killing a chicken. All below the saint were ants. This sentence seemed to be the complete opposite. All below the ants were saints. The order of the world seemed to have been completely reversed. At least at this moment. In everyone's eyes, Chu Yang had reversed the order of the world and subverted the world in everyone's eyes. Zhong Jiuyan and the other 2 died. To them, it was as if the world was destroyed by Chu Yang. There was no sound, only fear in their eyes. No one thought Chu Yang was funny at this time, but they thought he was terrifying. However, all of this was normal for Chu Yang. He had made a breakthrough and became a complete saint-level array master. A saint-level array master could temporarily use the great path of heaven and earth as a seal to form a large array. Different arrays, different seals, and different paths, so the paths were changeable. A saint-level array master's path was changeable, but a saint's path was unchanged. Based on this point, a saint-level array master was much more powerful than a saint. In addition, a saint-level array master used the great path of heaven and earth to form a seal. It was like using the terrain to set up a formation. The great path formed was far more powerful than a saint's great path. To make a simple analogy, a saint-level array master used mountains to set up a formation. The mountains were the great path of heaven and earth that the saint-level array master used, while a saint's path was just a hunter. The difference in strength was obvious. Although the latter was more flexible and changeable, it was not as powerful as the former. Many factors led to a saint-level array master being far more powerful than a saint. A saint-level array master was only one of them. Chu Yang's body was equivalent to a growing world. His path was the embryonic form of the heavenly path. After realizing this, it was very easy for him to kill a saint. He had obtained the inheritance of the 9th Confucian master, made contact with the mind net, sensed the heavenly Tao, and even attempted to master the heavenly Tao. Everything was even more different now. He had seen the entire heavenly Tao, and his comprehension of the heavenly Tao was at least on par with the earthly emperor realm. However, that was not all. The heart net of all living beings could be said to be a heavenly Tao. In addition, the ninth Confucian master had used the heavenly Tao as a reference to the primordial heartnet as a foundation to construct an even more perfect heartnet to control the hearts and minds of all living beings. After obtaining the inheritance of the ninth Confucian lord, Chu Yang's understanding of the heavenly Tao had increased by countless levels. Compared to him, the trio of Zhongjuyan was like a child. He had crushed the great Tao of Zhongjuyan and the other two, so it would be too easy for him to kill the three of them. Therefore, he merely smiled at all of this. He didn't feel the slightest bit complacent because this couldn't be any more natural. It would be a joke if he couldn't do it. Plaything, can you dirty your hands now? Chu Yang broke the silence. He wasn't interested in seeing Rui Zi's aghast expression. Crash. As soon as he said this, it was as if a mirror had been shattered. Many people seemed to be hurt by the fragments and couldn't help but be shocked. Chapter 24:18. You are a member of the celestial sect, high and mighty. Is it appropriate for you to be so surprised? I have a problem with that. Chu Yang sneered in his heart and mocked him even more. Whoosh. Rui Zi's face suddenly turned red. His face was boiling hot, and the shame was unbearable. However, he did not say anything. He moved his hands and suddenly formed a seal. Whoosh. Suddenly, a blood-red pillar of light burst out of Zizu Yiz's body. Immediately, a murderous aura that made one's heart palpitate, along with a strong smell of blood, instantly filled the world, as if a prehistoric giant beast had been born. In the blink of an eye, it was as if a large amount of fresh blood had merged into the void. It turned a faint red, and the smell of blood became even stronger. At this moment, everyone could not help but raise their heads to look. Within that blood-red pillar of light, a baleful aura surged like waves. The blood-red rod transformed into 1,000 feet long in the blink of an eye. It stood there quietly like a heavenly pillar. There were many hideous scars on its surface. Even until today, they had not been completely seen. However, through these hideous scars, everyone seemed to have seen an extremely tragic battle. At this moment, a series of mysterious runes appeared on the blood pillar. They spread all over the pillar and entered the blood pillar. It was as if chains were binding a demon. Rumble. Suddenly, a deafening sound of thunder exploded from the blood pillar, and the lightning that filled the sky immediately submerged that area. In the blink of an eye, the lightning disappeared. When the crowd looked again, the patterns on the blood pillar were quickly retreating and disappearing. Song Tangming, don't worry. I won't kill you, but I will let you have a good taste of ferocity. Rui Zi was beside the blood pillar. A cold light flashed in his tiger-like eyes as he stared coldly at Chu Yang. He then said coldly, I ask you to remember that I said ferocity, not strength. Ferocity will make you more fearful. I want you to live in fear for the rest of your life, and wake up from nightmares every night. Buzz, 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 buzz. Immediately, he formed another seal with both hands. A wave of energy spread out from his hand seal and entered the blood pillar, causing the entire blood pillar to turn transparent, revealing the jade rui in the deepest part of it. Seal, release. He slapped the blood pillar again, and the jade rui in the deepest part of the blood pillar completely disappeared. Immediately, the blood pillar trembled and buzzed. A blood-red light bloomed endlessly. Boom. As the Ru Yizi undid some sort of seal, the pillar of blood rapidly swelled, reaching a length of 3,000 feet. Afterwards, the murderous aura that radiated from it became even more terrifying and forceful. It swept out like a tsunami, causing the originally faint red space to instantly turn blood red. The baleful energy was as boundless as the sea. It was so terrifying that everyone felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. Outside the arena, Shi Danfeng, who had been paying attention to Chu Yang and Rui Zi, had a drastic change in expression when she sensed the terrifying fiendish energy. Then, she suddenly thought of something and could not help but exclaim, 7 Fiend Demon Sects 7 Fiend Blood Demon Staff. The 7 Fiend Blood Demon Stick. Chu Yang couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Something that could shock Shi Danfeng was definitely not simple, and was definitely tricky to deal with. Although the crowd did not know exactly what the seven-fiend blood demon staff was, they all knew that it was definitely a terrifying object after hearing Shi Danfeng's voice. The Ruyi child was thoroughly enraged. Just a single move had drawn out such a vicious creature. You have to be careful. After recovering from her shock, Shi Danfeng immediately sent a voice transmission to Chu Yang, telling him everything she knew. The Seven-Fiend Demon Sect was once a notorious demon sect during the Immortal Epoch, and the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff was the Seven-Fiend Demon Sect's most powerful weapon. Chapter 24:19. Thus, Shi Danfeng was extremely shocked. What was worse was that the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff was now in Ruyi Zi's hands. If Ruyi Zi could completely control it, Chu Yang would definitely not be able to resist such a vicious weapon. There was no doubt that he would die without any suspense. Chu Yang naturally knew this very well, and his heart couldn't help but sink. He never thought that Ruyi Zi would actually control an immortal weapon. Although the status of the immortal weapon was unknown, the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff was once an immortal weapon, and that alone was already very shocking. With a crash, everyone sensed the danger and retreated like a receding tide. Then, they stared at the blood pillar in the sky that was filled with ominous aura from afar. Don't worry, this thing is no longer an immortal weapon. Ruyi Zi's fair hand gently touched the huge pillar of blood. When he said those words with extreme disdain, the crowd immediately exploded when they heard the words immortal artifact. They were almost frightened to death. The crowd was instantly in chaos, and some people even started to flee, not daring to stay here for even a moment. Immortal weapon, it's actually an immortal weapon. My heavens, is this crazy? Immortal weapons are said to be much more terrifying than Emperor weapons. In front of an immortal weapon, Emperor weapons are not even worth mentioning. Emperor weapons are already terrifying, let alone immortal weapons. Ruyi Zi actually controls an immortal weapon. The lips of the person who spoke were trembling. This was too frightening and unsettling. No one in the heavenly soul realm had ever seen an immortal, nor had they ever seen an immortal weapon. They had only heard about it, but the immortal weapons and immortal weapons that they heard were too terrifying and unimaginable. Most people didn't even have the qualifications to see them. But today, at this moment, an immortal weapon of the past had actually appeared in front of them. Song Tangming's life or death was no longer important. What was important was the immortal weapon. Once this news spread, a huge storm would sweep through the central state, and Ruyi Zi would also be feared by everyone. Song Tangming, are you scared? Ruyi Zi saw everyone's terrified and bewildered expressions, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl into a disdainful smile. When he looked at Chu Yang, his expression became even more playful, like a cat sizing up a trembling mouse. Chu Yang did not pay attention to him. His gaze remained fixed on the blood pillar. After the seal was undone, scarlet demonic runes appeared on the blood pillar. They seemed to weave into hideous, bloody demonic mouths that emitted endless fiendish energy. At this moment, the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff revealed its most ferocious and brutal side to the new world, the new era. Speaking of which, Chu Yang was actually not that worried. If the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff was not damaged, the Ruyi Zi would not be able to control such a fearsome item. Ruyi Zi, according to the Heavenly Soul World's cultivation classification, was merely a first-order saint. At this level, not to mention the Immortal Epoch's immortal artifacts, he would not even be able to control the Heavenly Soul World's Emperor artifacts. Furthermore, if Chu Yang wanted to escape, he could escape into the heart net. What could Ruyi Zi do to him? Of course, he was also incomparably certain that the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff had been severely damaged. Chu Yang had an Emperor artifact, the Demonic Bell. The Demonic Bell had not reached the level of an Emperor artifact, so it was difficult for him to control it. He needed the help of the Ice Kuan. Ruyi Zi could control the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff. From this, he could determine that the Seven-Fiend Blood Demon Staff was at most an earthly sovereign realm Emperor artifact. It might even be equivalent to a saint artifact. Overall, he should thank Ruyi Zi for allowing him to sense the so-called immortal artifact in advance. Unfortunately, The seven-fiend blood demon staff was only an immortal artifact in the past. How should I deal with it? There was no need to fear, but it was extremely troublesome to deal with. Chapter 2420. Humph. Chu Yang did not answer. When Ruizi saw Chu Yang's extremely grave expression, he snorted coldly. Then, his figure flashed and soared up, landing on the top of the seven-fiend blood demon staff. Boom. The moment Ruizi landed, he immediately suffered a backlash. The seven-fiend blood demon staff suddenly trembled, and the scarlet, baleful energy was extremely berserk as it ruthlessly smashed towards Ruizi. The seven-fiend blood demon staff was once an immortal equipment. Although it was severely injured, such a strong weapon definitely had its own spirituality and was hard to tame. Once the seal was removed, naturally, it would not allow anyone to control it. Upon seeing this scene, Chu Yang's eyelids twitched. Although the backlash meant that Ruizi could not fully control it, it also showed how strong the seven-fiend blood demon staff was. Humph. Ignorant. Rui Child was infuriated. He seemed to have expected the seven-fiend blood demon staff's backlash. With a cold snort, he stomped down heavily. Immediately, there was a loud rumbling sound as a tremendous power of thunder and lightning poured into the staff. The seven-fiend blood demon staff trembled and buzzed like it was crying. Then, it quieted down, and the terrifying baleful energy weakened like the tide. Electric energy. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes again. Ruizi used thunder to suppress the seven-fiend blood demon staff. That meant that Ruizi's attainments in the Thunder Dao were not weak. As Xiao Chen observed, Ruizi absorbed the seven-fiend blood demon staff's energy. The incredibly scarlet, baleful energy covered Ruizi like blood. Boom. 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 As the endless baleful energy poured into Ruizi's body, his baleful aura became startling. He was also wrapped in electricity. The space behind him twisted, revealing a scarlet world. The scarlet, baleful energy seemed to be formed by countless drops of blood. It was incredibly bloody and surged continuously. A boundless immortal ancient aura surged over, and many scenes appeared. Every scene was extremely startling. It was like the scene of the immortal epoch before it was destroyed. Horror instantly appeared in everyone's eyes. The immortal epoch. Ruizi could actually cause the immortal epoch to reappear. Is this a scene from the immortal epoch? Xia Wanjin looked at this scene, and his expression suddenly became dignified. Such an opponent made him lose confidence in Chu Yang. If the Rui child could show the scene of the immortal epoch, the implications would be too profound. It would even be possible to say that he was the son of the immortal epoch. That should be something that happened during the immortal epoch. There should be no mistake. The pretty boy Wei Xian was also very solemn at this moment. However, this shouldn't be the manifestation of the Rui seed, but the seven-fiend blood demon staff. Those scenes were imprinted on the seven-fiend blood demon staff. Now that it has been activated, it is showing the past scenes. The moment the seven-fiend blood demon staff appeared, the vibrations it created were unimaginable. Zhuo Caichang, Yu Fuji, and the other four had already noticed it, but they didn't show themselves. Instead, they drank tea with the guests and watched this scene from afar. Fellow Daoist, isn't this a bit too much? The seven-fiend blood demon staff was once an immortal weapon. This guest was the sect master of the Ru Yi sect, Feng Bushun. Feng Bushun was about 56 years old. He was as short as Fifth Liu, but he was more refined than Fifth Liu. His actions were more appropriate and graceful. The reason he appeared at the Sage Monarch Academy was simple. Song Tangming was the Sage Monarch Academy's favorite student. If the Ruizi came to kill him, the Ruizi would have been crushed to death. Brothers were, don't worry. Although the seven-fiend blood demon staff was once an immortal weapon, things are different now. The immortal epoch has already been destroyed. This ferocious item is just a phoenix, not even comparable to a chicken. Chapter 2421. Brother Feng, you're too humble. Zhuo Caichang cupped his fists in return. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Although the seven-fiend blood demon staff is no longer an immortal artifact, its power is still unimaginable. That's why I'm the one begging you. Please show mercy later. Brothers were, you're embarrassing me. Although Fong Bushun was polite, the smile on his face betrayed him. Brothers were, you're the owner of this place. How would I dare to be impudent in the Sage Monarch Academy? Brother Fong, what are you talking about? Fong Bushun's faint smugness made Zhuo Saichang and the others very unhappy, but they did not act out. It was easy to kill Fong Bushun, but it was very troublesome to have a bad relationship with the immortal sect. Many people from the middle ground might come to the Sage Monarch Academy to denounce the Rui sect. In the field, the scarlet world behind Rui Zi had disappeared, and the scenes of the immortal epoch had all disappeared. He looked down at Chu Yang, who had a grave expression on his face. The corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely cold arc. Then, he stretched out his hand and hooked it at Chu Yang in a very contemptuous manner. At that moment, Rui Zi was standing on the huge seven-fiend blood demon staff. One of his eyes was flickering with lightning, while the other was scarlet. Blood-colored fiendish aura and lightning circled around his body. The fiendish aura swept out in all directions, forming an oppressive aura that made everyone feel suffocated. His murderous intent seemed to have materialized. It was like a huge sword dancing in the sky, intimidating everyone. It made Rui Zi look like a killing god who had descended to reap lives. Now, it was up to the invincible Song Tangming to respond to Rui Zi's actions. This time, would he be able to create a miracle and overturn everyone's imaginations? At that moment, everyone's eyes could not help but look at Chu Yang's tall and slender figure. His handsome face was solemn and filled with coldness and sternness. However, he did not panic in the slightest as he calmly said, "You little thing, what are you so proud of? Are you taking out a piece of trash to show off to prove how noble you are? I have no choice but to admit defeat. Otherwise, there will be more trouble. I'm afraid I'll be disgusted to death by you." An immortal artifact was now a piece of junk. This shamelessness was going to mess up the scene again. Xia Wanjin didn't know what to say for a moment. He couldn't help but hold his forehead and shake his head. Chu Hang is really worthy of being Chu Hang. This uncle can't help but admire you. Everyone present was stunned. Even Zhuo Saichang's group of 5, as well as the Ruyi sect's sect master Fong Bushun, were stunned. Crazy, but how could that be enough? Facing an immortal artifact, at least an immortal artifact in the past, he didn't fear it at all. He didn't even have the slightest bit of reverence. In the entire heavenly spirit realm, how many people were there? Everyone. You have to be prepared as well, because what I discovered just now almost scared you to death. This time, it might really come true. When he spoke again, the serious look on Chu Yang's face disappeared, replaced by a roguish look. He even solemnly warned everyone, "I'm telling you in advance. You can watch the show, but I won't be responsible if you're scared to death." Waraha. Not only was he rampant, but he was also amusing. What kind of dog guts was that? In the face of such shamelessness, everyone could only ask the heavens, speechless. Shi Danfeng had been extremely worried about Chu Yang, but now she felt embarrassed and couldn't help but cover her eyes. Chu Yang's shameless acceptance made Rui Zi's curved lips disappear. The coldness in his eyes became more intense. "What are you dissatisfied about? You said I haven't seen the world, but you won't let me criticize you. Is there such logic in this world?" Chapter 24-22. Immediately, Xiao Chen's entire body lit up, giving off a dazzling light. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen seemed to have entered an eternal divine sun, turning into the Lord of the Sun. The world was filled with dazzling light. The streams of light and meteors earlier were all the great Tao of the world, guided by Xiao Chen. After becoming a sage-grade formation master, Xiao Chen could use the terrain to lay formations. He could also guide the great Tao of the world. Right now, it was daytime. The sun hung high in the sky, illuminating the world. The light Tao was easy to guide. In the holy sun, Chu Yang's clenched hand condensed holy light, forming a solemn and holy light spear. Where he held the spear, there was a ball of light, as if it was a heavenly kingdom. There were even wings spreading out from the spear. This was the angel's wings, the spear of judgment. It had been a long time since Chu Yang used the martial spirits of fate and destiny. Now that he obtained the inheritance of the Confucian epoch, he did not need to hide so much. The holy light was scorching and holy. It spread out in circles and boundless waves of energy swept out, filling the entire sky and dispelling the baleful aura. The void immediately returned to its original state and was filled with light. It was filled with joy and hope. It illuminated the hearts of everyone, making them feel calm and happy. Everyone's nervousness and fear vanished. They could not help showing joyful smiles on their faces. It was like they had forgotten everything before them, causing the tense atmosphere to vanish. It was extremely miraculous. The light Tao. No, it's the divine Tao. When the Ruyi sect's sect master, Feng Bushun, saw the spear of judgment in Chu Yang's hand, his pupils constricted. He could not help saying, using the divine to counter the demon. What a good move. Ha ha. Zhuo Saichang and the others could not help exchanging smiles. They felt very happy as they thought to themselves, who asked you to be impudent? Do you think that bastard is easy to deal with? Whoosh. Just as everyone showed joyful smiles, Chu Yang exerted force in his hand, grabbing the spear of judgment. Let me see how incredible the people of the immortal epoch are. In the next instant, Xiao Chen's figure moved, shooting out like a beam of light, extremely fast. When he approached the Ruyi sect, his figure suddenly vanished. Rumble. Only when a loud rumbling sound was heard did everyone come back to their senses. They saw Ruyi also throwing a punch with a cold smile. However, his punch was aimed at the empty space to his right. The void instantly turned scarlet red, as if it was dyed red by the blood of the heavenly duke. Boundless baleful aura surged wildly, forming a blood-colored heavenly river. After that, it transformed into an angry dragon that roared out, wanting to tear apart the void and devour the heavens. Kai. Rays of light suddenly erupted from the originally empty space. Soon after, a light spear suddenly pierced out from the void. It was as if there was a sun hanging from the tip of the spear. The holy light it emitted was scorching, holy, and domineering, directly distorting the void. The light spear pierced out like a ray of light. The sharp spear tip was as fast as lightning as it collided with the fiendish qi wrapped around the fist. Dang! When the spear and the fist collided, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. A terrifying gale and violent energy also swept out from the fist and spear, causing the void to explode. Dang! 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 Ruyi was sent flying by the tremendous force. He stepped on the void, causing balls of bloody light to explode. After retreating 1,000 feet, he finally stabilized his body. On the other side, Chu Yang also struck out from the void. He also retreated 1,000 feet before stabilizing his body. Chu Yang failed to achieve anything in this attack. They were evenly matched. But then, he immediately disappeared into the void again. Even if Song Tangming was testing you, do you think you can succeed with such a small trick? Dream on. Ruyi was expressionless. As he spoke, he suddenly hugged the 7-fiend blood demon staff that had transformed into 1,000 feet long. Then, he raised it and smashed it down. The staff drew a scarlet arch bridge in the sky and smashed into the void in an overbearing manner. Rumble. In the void, the space exploded. Endless baleful aura filled the air, and a figure flew out in a sorry state. That figure flew out for a distance of 10,000 feet before stabilizing itself. Chapter 24-23. Chu Yang had formed the divine Tao with the help of a sage array master. His great Tao was extremely vigorous. He had used the secret technique of the Destiny Twins, the second form of the genius martial soul, the God martial soul. Its power was astonishing. However, he had still been defeated. Defeated cleanly. This was definitely the first time something like this had happened. Although the Spear of Judgment was not the strongest, after Chu Yang's cultivation level had increased, its power was no longer the same. However, it was still not enough. Even if I don't use a good saber, I will still use it as a blunt saber. Even if I don't unsheath the killing sword, it will still be covered in dust. It seems that my stubborn concealment of these secret techniques has backfired in the end. Although Chu Yang was shocked, he also realized the strength of the enemy. However, he did not belittle himself. Instead, he reflected on himself. He had not used these secret techniques, causing them to be stagnant. It's not too late to mend the pen after the sheep have been lost. His eyes were sharp. Without saying a word, he clenched his right hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Space distorted. Boundless light burst out from where his right hand was clenched. Shortly after, it seemed to form a world of light, a heavenly country, from which the gospel of God spread out. Angel core. Chu Yang imitated the world formed by the God martial soul. After a cold shout, hundreds and thousands of angels of sacred light were born. Each of them had a pair of light wings behind their backs and held a spear of judgment in their hands. Sacred flames burned on the surface of their bodies, but their faces could not be seen clearly. Under the glaring light, the crowd was astonished. This Song Tangming was too shocking. He had not used such a profound technique before. Whoosh! Chu Yang condensed the spear of judgment again. He was very cold. The light spear in his hand trembled. Those angels of sacred light instantly formed a great light array. Like a magnificent army, they rushed out in a mighty manner, drowning Ruizi and the 7 fiend blood demon staff. He also moved. Like a beam of light, he shot toward Ruizi. Scram! Ruizi's eyes were cold. He once again held the 7 fiend blood demon staff and swept it over. However, just as the two were about to collide, Chu Yang suddenly sneered and changed his move. Whoosh! 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 The angels threw the spear of judgment in their hands. Midway, they turned into a sacred sun and fell down densely. Boom! Boom! There was a shocking explosion, forming a terrifying storm of energy and light. It instantly sent the 7 fiend blood demon staff flying, while Ruizi was completely enveloped within. Angelic seal. Chu Yang's goal was the 7 fiend blood demon staff. He wanted to seal it. Immediately, the angels of sacred light descended in a great formation, suppressing the 7 fiend blood demon staff. Blinding light flooded the area. Die. Multitasking, Chu Yang was not idle at all. He clenched his hand again, and the essence of the world was sucked dry. All the light was also attracted, and the world became completely dark. A sun was formed in his hand, and he threw it at the Rui seed. Rumble. With a loud explosion, heaven and earth shook, and everyone was temporarily blinded. Everyone's expression changed. Such a terrifying attack was too shocking. Under such a terrifying attack, no matter how powerful Ruizi was, it would be enough to make him suffer. The storm of light was wreaking havoc. Everyone was staring at the center of the storm. When the light weakened to a certain extent, the gazes became even more intense. Then, there was a burst of exclamations. It's useless. Chu Yang also sensed Ruizi's aura and narrowed his eyes. When the light completely dissipated, a figure stood proudly in the void. Who else could it be but Ruizi? Chapter 24-24. He was not injured at all, completely unscathed. Chu Yang's terrifying attack had actually failed to injure him at all. Ruizi is so strong. He is simply too strong, someone exclaimed, trembling in fear. Ruizi's skin was as resplendent as silver, and his figure was rather thin. However, he gave off an unshakable feeling. His eyes shone with boundless lightning, as if they had turned into a world of thunder. The berserk power of thunder continuously poured out of his body, making him look like a god of thunder from the immortal epoch. Crackle. His eyes suddenly stared at Chu Yang indifferently. His gaze was like lightning as he looked down. It was as if a deity had suddenly stared at an ordinary creature in the world. Despicable, there should not be a second time for such humiliation. The Ru Yiz's voice appeared to be gentle, but every single word was like a clap of thunder. Once they were spoken, they rumbled and caused the world to tremble. The 7 fiend blood demonic staff was sealed, so Ruizi could not bear it. He had fallen into a passive state, which was a great humiliation. At the same time, the thunder liquid on his body turned into a suit of thunder armor in a few breaths' time. At first glance, his body seemed to have swelled several times, turning into a giant of thunder. The might and pressure coming from Ruizi's body became increasingly horrifying. Despicable, I will insta-kill you. Do you have a problem with that? Under the armor of thunder armor, the lightning in Ruizi's cold eyes became even more explosive, completely locking onto Chu Yang. There was a loud rumble, and the world shook. In the next instant, Ruizi shot out like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared above Chu Yang and threw a punch. To break through all methods with force, one had to crush the opponent. This punch was tyrannical and filled with power. There was nothing fancy about it, just extremely berserk power. Immediately, thunder danced wildly, and countless bolts of electricity poured into Ruizi's arm. Then, they passed to his fist, causing the armor of thunder armor to disappear. Boom! When the punch was thrown, the void shattered. Thin cracks spread out in the void. The fist wrapped in rolling thunder rapidly enlarged in Chu Yang's eyes. Chu Yang's expression abruptly changed. Even Zhuo Caichang's group of 5 could not help but become worried. They were prepared to save Chu Yang at any time. Light barrier, reflect. He reacted quickly and immediately formed a huge barrier of light. However, it was immediately shattered like a mirror. Angel's protection, an egg-shaped light barrier immediately protected him. Above the light shield, there were faint divine halos shining, and there were pairs of holy wings. It was as if there were many angels stacked on top of each other, so densely packed that the bodies of the angels were covered by their holy wings. The light shield was like a city of light. It was indestructible and seemed to be able to withstand the most powerful attacks in the world. Dong. The guardian angel seemed to be as powerful as the earth. The Rui seed smashed down without any hesitation, causing the void to shake like the earth. At that moment, it was as if a huge meteorite had crashed onto the earth. Large explosions continued, and earth-shattering sounds resounded. Billowing waves of energy surged, as if they were about to overturn the entire world. Endless lightning and holy light seemed to be colliding as well. Such a collision was earth-shattering. Boom! Under everyone's silent gaze, at the center of the explosion of lightning and holy light, a terrifying shockwave suddenly rushed out. Immediately, a figure of light was seen shooting out and smashing into the ground. Dust rose into the sky, and everyone felt as if the ground under their feet was about to collapse. Who was it that was sent flying? The person who landed was obviously no match for the opponent. Therefore, it was very likely that the outcome of this battle had already been decided. Therefore, everyone was very concerned. In mid-air, the power of thunder and the power of light were still raging wildly. This continued for a while before it gradually calmed down. The lightning and holy light also completely dissipated. Whoosh! Everyone immediately looked over, and a figure was imprinted in their eyes. Chapter 24-25. Are you Yizzy? Are you Yizzy 1? Everyone goggled. However, no matter what, they could not be wrong. The place fell deathly silent. Many people felt complicated and sighed. The immortal epoch's people were indeed strong, too strong. Song Tangming was already strong enough. However, it was useless. Before the immortal epoch's people, he was still nothing. With this, the entire central province appeared even more inferior before the immortal epoch's people. Wei Xian and Xia Wanjin fell silent. This was especially so for Xia Wanjin. He had never seen Chu Yang in such a sorry state before. Zhuo Caichang and the others, who were watching this battle from afar, fell silent as well. Only Feng Bushun showed a smug smile. Drip, drip, drip. Suddenly, there was a soft sound. Only then did everyone discover drops of blood continuously falling from the sky. Then, they saw that Ayu Yiz's fist was already mangled. Ayu Yizzy did pay a price. He was very clear about this. In the final strike, that cheap counterattack was extremely startling, nearly shattering Ayu Yiz's entire arm. Yizhi did not show any smug expression as he stared at the hole in the ground. Logically speaking, that cheap bastard should have been severely injured. However, for some reason, Yizhi had a feeling that although that cheap bastard's cultivation was lower, his physical body was stronger. That cheap bastard could not win because he underestimated him. That's impossible. Yizhi did not believe it, nor could he accept it. After a moment of uproar, everyone started to quiet down. This was not over yet. The unease in Yizhi's heart intensified. A light flickered in his eyes as he suddenly attacked, throwing a punch. Rumble. When the punch was thrown, lightning appeared. When this punch was thrown, it was like thunder descended from the sky, shaking the world. Electricity immediately flooded the black hole in the ground. Such a ruthless strike made many people's eyelids twitch. This was not beating a dog while it was down but trying to take Song Tongming's life. However, come again. Suddenly, from the place where the thunder and lightning were wreaking havoc, an indifferent voice that suppressed the sound of thunder and lightning drilled into everyone's ears. It was extremely mocking. Yizhi's pupils constricted. Everyone was horrified. When they recovered their wits, they all felt shocked. Song Tangming did not die. He still had the strength to fight. Sure. Everyone immediately widened their eyes. Unfortunately, the lightning there was even more violent, so they couldn't see clearly at all. Rumble. Along with the rumbling of thunder, the power of thunder and lightning became even more turbulent. There was even a gust of wind whistling out. After that, people saw a figure suddenly fly out and land in midair. Chu Yang once again appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, he was stepping on a thunder cloud. 9 pairs of wings grew out of his back, one white and one black. 2 kinds of talismans flowed on them. One was the wings of an angel, and the other was the wings of a demon. One seemed to be the kingdom of wind, and the other seemed to be the kingdom of thunder. When he gently flapped his wings, the wind whistled and thunder raged. The sound of wind and thunder mixed together. In that moment, all of the wind and all of the lightning seemed to have heard the call of the angel's wings and the fiend's wings. They converged madly from all directions, from the 9 heavens, from the 9 hells, and from everything else. It was as if Chu Yang were the emperor of wind and the lord of lightning. Many people's expressions suddenly changed because they realized that the airflow in heaven and earth was no longer under their control. They couldn't control it even if they used their cultivation. They seemed to be unable to fly. Even if they did, they would be judged by thunder. On the other hand, when Song Tangming's fiend devil wings flapped, everything seemed to be blown away. When the angel wings flapped, thunder from the sky would fall like rain. Sounds of gasps could be heard from the crowd. Yizhi was strong, but who dared to say that Song Tangming was weak? Who dared to say who would win? Chapter 24-26. In the air, Chu Yang's skin, flesh, tendons, and bones brimmed with the power of light, darkness, wind, and lightning. Occasionally, lightning flickered. The destructive power of the lightning was evident. It seemed like it would come out of his body at any moment to injure others. Occasionally, it would be like the wind, illusory, faintly discernible. Occasionally, it would be transparent, giving off boundless light. Occasionally, it would be like a deep abyss, completely hidden in the darkness. Wind and lightning intersected, flickering between light and darkness. The weather changed completely. In the blink of an eye, the 4 powers of wind, lightning, light, and darkness entered his body. His aura changed again, but he did not seem to have changed. However, those with good eyesight would immediately discover that every cell in his body was either a world of wind, a world of thunder, or a world of light and darkness. This was most obvious in his pupils. His pupils had already split into 4. The upper and lower pupils were light and darkness, while the left and right pupils were wind and lightning. The power of wind, lightning, light, and darkness intersected, forming a primal chaos that encased his eyes. However, the gaze that pierced through the primal chaos was cold, sharp, and seemed to contain a faint evil aura. The angelic wings and the demonic wings on Xiao Chen's back flapped gently. The surrounding space quietly twisted. "It's my turn." Do you have any objections? Such a cold voice made everyone's heart palpitate involuntarily. Just at this moment, the angelic wings and the demonic wings on Xiao Chen's back flapped even faster. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The cries of ghosts and deities resounded. Suddenly, the world became strangely half bright and half dark. Many demons appeared on the demonic wings, riding the wind. Angels appeared on the angelic wings. Holy light and lightning flickered together, looking like heavenly punishment or judgment. The demons overturned the heavens and the earth. Everything in their path was cut, corroded, and swept up into the air. Black smoke and dust rose into the air like rolling demonic fog. The angels were burning the void. The power of thunder and lightning was released, forming a belt of light that traversed the void. Wind, lightning, light, and darkness attacked together. The world changed color. Wind, lightning, light, and darkness, the perfect fusion of the four elements. The four elements complement each other. Bastard, you are really amazing. But do you think this is enough? I will show you the power of the immortal epoch. Rui Child snorted coldly and flicked his fingers repeatedly. Immediately, 100 moons and 100 suns rose in the sky. Boundless sword chi whizzed out, cutting through the void. 100 moons and 100 suns rose at the same time. How shocking was that? The entire Sage Monarch College was enveloped in boundless light. Every beam of light seemed to be a beam of sword chi. Within the light, sharp whistling sounds were as dense as the sound of rain. Kai, kai, hu, rumble. As the two collided, a sizzling sound rang out incessantly. It seemed as if the power of darkness was corroding something, and the power of light was burning something. The whistling sound of the wind and the rolling sound of thunder also resounded. In the end, the angels were up against the hundreds of suns, the demons were up against the hundreds of moons, and the wind and lightning were up against the boundless sword chi. Accompanied by a loud rumble, the world shook violently. The wind, lightning, light, and darkness, as well as the suns and moons, all disappeared. Peace returned to the world once again. Everyone was in a daze. What kind of attack was that? If they had been the ones to go up, they would have been turned into ashes in an instant. They wouldn't have been able to resist for even a second. Just like Zhong Jiuyan and the other two, they would have been killed in an instant. They wouldn't even know how they died. Strong. They were really too strong. These two people were so strong that it made people tremble. This attack was evenly matched. After another close combat, both sides seemed to be sizing each other up and didn't attack for the time being. Silence. It was dead silent to the extreme. Chapter 24-27. Song Deming broke through the 18 stages of the mystic gate with brute force, killing a saint at the Nirvana realm. At this moment, he was like a god yet not a god, like a devil yet not a devil. His aura was vigorous, and his killing intent filled the world. Rui Zi was from the Immortal Dao era and had mastered many Immortal Dao techniques. He was high and mighty. At this moment, he was like a banished immortal, extremely elegant, but similarly, his killing intent filled the world. Rui Zi, today, I'm going to trample you under my feet. I'm going to trample on your arrogance completely. The word bastard was extremely jarring to Chu Yang. His voice became colder and sharper as his battle intent burned. This battle was not the most dangerous battle he had experienced in Central State, and the enemy he encountered was definitely not the strongest. However, he was the strongest person he had encountered among his peers. Chen Ph, Song Tangming, do you have the ability to do so? Rui Zi sneered. Great emperors are inferior to immortals. In the eyes of the immortal Dao, great emperors are nothing. We are only existences that you look up to, but you can't reach because of your desire. You want to defeat me? That's a fool's dream. Although what he said was true, everyone from the Sage King College and Central State couldn't help but feel angry. Is that so? If the immortal Dao people are so powerful, why don't they unify Central State? Why did they jump out to be clowns in the recent 100 years? Chu Yang raised his hand and pointed at Ruizi. Just because of what you said, I'll kill you today. Rui's sect won't even dare to let out a fart. Was the Jin dynasty a decoration? Was the Jin emperor a decoration? Everyone felt delighted, but Ruizi's expression couldn't help but change. His gaze suddenly became extremely sinister. The immortal Dao people only seek immortality and don't involve themselves in the mortal world. Song Tangming, what's the use of having ulterior motives? You deliberately sow discord between the immortal Dao people and the heavenly soul world. You deserve to die, haha. Chu Yang laughed loudly. Don't involve yourself in the mortal world. Then you immortal Dao people should quickly scram back to the mountains to cultivate your immortality. Why are you showing off in the mortal world? He exposed Ruizi's hypocrisy with one sentence. Ruizi's expression darkened, and his killing intent became even sharper. Clang! He immediately attacked, and a blood-red blade appeared in his hand. Shrill screams instantly rang out in everyone's ears, making them see the screams of malicious ghosts. They also saw endless ferocity. Countless people died tragically, and everything was blood-red in their perception. It was another demonic artifact, one that was not inferior to a saint artifact. Moreover, it was also extremely fierce. Many people's expressions changed. Ruizi had quite a few treasures on him. Previously, it was the 7 Fiend Blood demonic staff. Now, it was this terrifying demonic blade. However, they did not know where this demonic blade came from. Was it a celestial item before? Chu Yang chuckled. I thought that cultivators of the Tao of Immortals would have great abilities, but they're just relying on external objects. Ruizi sneered. Idiot. As a human, you should know how to make good use of natural objects. Otherwise, what's the point of being a feathered beast? Are you saying that you're nothing but a feathered beast? Chu Yang felt stifled. This bastard was bullying him because he was poor and had no treasures. He was actually being bullied with treasures. Although he had the 5 Hells mother-child heavenly demon cauldron, he definitely did not want to reveal it in front of others. Feathered beast, I collected a pile of trash just now. Thank you for the trash that you gifted me. The 7 Fiend Blood demonic staff had been sealed and seized by Chu Yang. This was a humiliation to Ruizi. His pupils suddenly became vertical. Lowly bastard, after I kill you, I'll naturally be able to take back my treasures. Whoosh! The blade gleam flowed like blood on the demonic blade. Ruizi slashed out with his blade, and it instantly turned into millions of blood gleams that enveloped Chu Yang. In an instant, the world was filled with blood-red blade gleams. Chu Yang had no place to hide at all, and could only face it head-on. Aside from the sharpness of this move, it also sliced through the air, slicing through the void, and stirring up the air in the world. It was as if it wanted to restrain something in advance. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.